Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to, I call to order the August 19th, 2020 meeting of the Morris Township Committee. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to approve the minutes of the July 15th regular meeting.
Mayor Wilson, do you want to do a roll call?
Oh, sorry. Madam Clerk, could you please do the roll call?
Yes. Mr. Arbonides is absent. Mr. Dorothy.
Here.
Mr. Mancuso. Mr. Mancuso.
He's muted.
I see him. Mr. Frizzell. Mr. Frizzell.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The legal notice required in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied, and a statement certifying same will be executed. First up this evening, we have a Community Service Recognition Award for... Okay, sorry, we'll jump back to that. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 15th meeting, please?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second? Looks like everyone's muted. No?
It's not muted.
So we have a motion to approve the minutes by Mr. Grizel, and we need a second.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Okay, first up this evening, we have a Community Service Recognition Award for Melissa SPIOTTA. Many of you may remember that we started a new tradition last year of honoring individuals and groups who have shown exceptional service to our community. And those awards have been interrupted a bit by COVID, but we're very happy to resume tonight. And our honoree tonight is Melissa SPIOTTA. Melissa has shown exceptional service to our community. We do have an award framed, which we will have Melissa come in and pick up after the meeting. And I'd like to read it and thank Melissa for your tremendous service to our community. This is a certificate of recognition for community service to Melissa SPIOTTA. With grateful recognition, the Mayor and Township Committee hereby commends Melissa SPIOTTA for her remarkable record of community service, exemplary volunteerism, leadership, and professional achievement. Ms. SPIOTTA has a long history of service to the Township of Morris, serving as president of the Hillcrest School Home and School Association, has been a member of the Junior League for 9 years, and is also a member of the Morris Township Hillside Ladies Auxiliary. She is also a member of the Morris School District Board of Education and is currently serving as vice president. She's also founder of Morristown Helps, a Facebook group which endeavors to educate residents on how they can help the community. Since COVID, Ms. SPIOTTA has been actively involved in helping to supply food to people in need. She has organized Morristown and Morris Township food drives in conjunction with both municipal governing bodies and police departments, which resulted in 22,000 pounds of food, which benefited the Interfaith Food Pantry, and is actively helping both our healthcare workers and local restaurants in creating an Adopt a Unit sign-up genius for hospital meals, which has resulted in over 10,000 meals being donated by the community, amounting to approximately $100,000 being spent. She's the co-founder of FLAG, Morris Township, which raised almost $56,000 in donations and restaurant credits that provided approximately 7,500 meals to the hospital. She's a co-leader of Morristown Order Out Twice a Week stimulus program plan Facebook group, which endeavors to support our local restaurants and businesses. On behalf of the residents of Morris Township, Melissa, we extend our appreciation for all your selfless and untiring work in and around our community. We hereby recognize and extend our congratulations to you, and we thank you so much for all the wonderful things you've done for our community. Thank you. Well, let's hear you. I especially love how you're able to use social media to so effectively to garner participation from the public and to educate people on how to do so many different things. So we really appreciate all that you do, and your community really appreciates it. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I guess the thing I just want to make sure I say is that not a single one of those things could have been done without lots and lots of other people helping, including yourselves. And like Liam Neeson says in the movie Hostage, I have a particular set of skills, and one of them is to get to know people, and one of them is to organize things. So I basically just use those skills to just try to help other people. And for me, it was a real lifeline during COVID to have something to do like that, just to kind of keep my mind working. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's great to, you know, it's not something I don't look for recognition, but if I get it, I appreciate it. So thank you. And thank you all so much.
Thank you. And especially the combination of supporting our local businesses and supporting our healthcare workers who are doing such a heroic work during COVID. So thank you.
If I could add something. I've said numerous times that the community is a wonderful place to live because of the people who are here. The government, the governing body, the municipal government can only do so much in running the town, and we do a fine job of that. But what really makes this a special place is the volunteers that put themselves forward and give themselves, whether that's of a board or committee, like we're going to have a presentation from the Historic Preservation Committee. We have lots of boards and committees that help run the town, and people like Melissa who donate so much of her time to her fellow residents and making sure that the town that we live in, the community we live in, is really a better place for everybody. And I really thank you for all the time you put in, all the effort you put in, all your energy, and keep going.
Thanks, Jeff.
Keep going.
Thank you. Okay, with that, thank you so much, Melissa. We'll move on. Next up, we have a brief update on the work that's being done by our Historic Preservation Commission. Like many of our boards, our HPC has not been meeting as a full commission. They've not been meeting in person, but they have been working in their subgroups. HPC is working on a couple of projects that are really interesting and exciting. I've asked Carol Barkin, who chairs the HPC, and Chuck Schmidt, who's an HPC member and a very active contributor to these projects, to join us tonight and give us a brief taste of what they're doing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carol and Chuck. I see you on the screen.
Mayor Wilson, would you recognize that John Arvanites is present?
Sure.
Thank
John?
you.
Okay, thank you. All right, welcome, John. And with that, we'll turn it over to Carol and Chuck.
Okay, Kathy, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. We've been really busy. We've got actually 5 applications that we're following. The Del Barton, these are all historic assets with applications that we've been reviewing, and that's our mission. So they're Del Barton, the Rabbinical College, 284 Mendham Road, Elmwood Hall, and also 257 Alnwick Hall and 257 Mount Kemble. And, you know, we look forward to having a back and forth with these developers and getting a final product that works for the neighbors and the town and for the owners. Erin Doherty in the engineering department, we've been working with her for a couple months, and she has gone into the GIS database and she's flagged every one of our historic properties. So I don't think we're going to be missing any in the future because of her work, which is great. I do want to say something about Alnwick Hall because I know that is coming up next week and we're going to have some more comments and some more details, but I just want to commend you, Kathy, for pushing ahead with this meeting under such difficult circumstances. But it's the right thing to do, and I just want to thank you for that. And now I'd like to turn it over to Chuck, who's been working on our other project. The 8 members of the HPC have fanned out across the township, and we have visited all the historic sites and documented them photographically. And Chuck, take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Carol. I appreciate it. And Kathy, once again, thank you for your support and for this opportunity. In 2019, fourth quarter 2019, we began working on a revised ordinance for the Historic Preservation Commission. We were making forward progress on that until December, when we met with the planning board, and it sort of stopped there, and we realized at that point that the scope that we were trying to tackle was really too big to be practical, okay? On the historic properties map that's kept by engineering, there were identified 10 historic districts, including about 1,000 properties. If you count them all, it would be considered historic. And that was really kind of overwhelming, and we knew that there was probably a lot of noise in there. So beginning in 2020, we undertook to go through those and to rationalize them. And as a result, we've narrowed the 1,000 down to 205 properties that have true historic significance. We really want to focus our efforts on in terms of preservation. So as Carol mentioned, all of the members of our commission fanned out. First of all, we got badges to identify ourselves, and then we spread out to start taking pictures of these properties and document their condition. And as a result, we have, I'm going to guess, 400 or 500 pictures of these properties. And so it occurred to me, why not organize these into albums that we can share with people? So that in fact is what we've done. And so I've shared with the committee members and with Tim Quinn and Jim Slate, and many thanks to Erin Doherty for helping us with this, the Washington Valley album of historic properties. Hope we've had a chance to take a look at it. If not, please do so. Let's see. We will be continuing to produce these as time and resources permit. There will be 3 more, one for each of the other historic districts, Prudentown and Normandy Park, and then one for the collection of individual properties that, that exist out there without being necessarily in a historic district. So they will be coming forward at approximately 1 per month. And we really view this as an important part of our mission to educate and inform the residents of the township on the very special place that historic properties and that history holds in this community. We're all very well aware of the deep history in this community, but the properties are a very tangible aspect of that. So we have those and we've distributed those, and once again, I hope you have a chance to take a look at those. With that, I would like to just quickly transition to the ordinance. We would very much like to resume work on that as soon as it's feasible to do so. Many thanks to Jim Slate for agreeing to operate, even though basically the approval process was suspended. Jim saw the value in what was being done. He agreed to operate as if the ordinance had passed. And so as a result, we've been getting applications that go to the planning board, the zoning board, and the building department, some of which Carol had mentioned. And so we've been able to engage in with those properties and try to influence the direction they're taking with regard to their historic nature. What we've come to find out pretty quickly, though, is that by the time it gets to that point where there's actually an application before a township body, a lot of work has been done. A lot of expensive engineering has been completed. And it's difficult at that point to really get a lot of traction trying to change the direction. So one of the things we definitely want to do once we're able to resume work on the ordinance is to engage earlier in the process. We've done a lot of looking around at other communities. Dover Township has a concept known as certificate of historic review. And for our 205 properties, we want to, once we get this in place, notify the property owners that before they can submit an application to any of the boards or bodies, that they need to meet with the Historic Preservation Commission for a review. Nothing is binding, okay, but it's a chance for us to influence early on some of the design concepts that they may have in place. So with that, those are really the thoughts that I wanted to share with you. I just wanted to ask, though, do you think we have an opportunity yet this calendar year to try to move that ordinance forward? I'd like to just put that out there.
What additional work do you need to do on it? Do you need to meet in person for that? Or can work be done via Zoom?
Yes. So what we need to do, Kathy, is we need to get back together with the TCC, with Tim and Jim and their team to kind of reset where we are, to talk about these new concepts, this new concept in particular of the historic certificate of historic review, and work with the attorneys to get that proper language into the ordinance, and then bring it back before the Township Committee, the Planning Board, and then the Township Committee again to hopefully get that approved.
And so the 205 properties that you've identified as historic so far would be the focus of the ordinance efforts?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, that's much more manageable numbers-wise than it was before. And so what the remaining part is to figure out ways to get the review into the beginning part of the application process.
Correct.
Right. Okay. I think we should be able to set up a Zoom meeting for that. I see Mr. Quinn, and perhaps we can, we can set that up in the it'll probably take I would say a couple weeks maybe to get a meeting on that. Next week is pretty busy. The week after or the week after that, perhaps.
Mayor, I'd be happy to help.
Okay, good. I know Mr. Mancuso's been on part of that as well. So we'll figure out how to do that. It sounds to me like you've got the work involved in moving the ordinance forward boiled down significantly from where it was before. And I know that's a really important part of what you're doing, but I have to say when I got the photo album on the Washington Valley, it was fantastic. It was so interesting. And how is it, one thing I wanted to ask, is there some place we can put that, or is that ready to be shared with the public, or do you feel like you still have additional work to do before it would be ready?
I think I can answer that question. Our thoughts are it's kind of a living document, kind of organic, but we're always making changes to it. As we go through this, we're comparing, what exactly was on the 2012 map. But our plan is to release it and have it available to residents or anyone else digitally on the website, the township website, and then maybe print a copy for the engineering department and perhaps one for the mayor's office. And also our other thought was maybe working with Virginia and highlighting on Facebook from time to time one of the historic properties. So
oh, that's a great idea.
Maybe in the municipal messenger, featured property of the week or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know, do you have on this screen, do you have the Washington Valley book that we gave you?
I don't have it on, I have to look it up, it's in my email, but it's.
I thought I sent it to Mark Daly. I don't know if you can share the screen with it or not.
We can. I don't think we can do that right now.
Not here right now, and had we known about that, we would have put it on a laptop.
Uh,
to actually open up and share.
That's okay. We can highlight that. We can send a messenger and highlight when it's posted. I think a lot of people would be really interested to see this. So, and I just commend your work. It's really interesting. And as you complete the remainder of the historic neighborhoods, I'd like to, invite you back and have you highlight those as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, terrific, Kathy. Thank you for your feedback. It's a lot of work. It was actually fun to do, so we look forward to proceeding with it.
Yeah, same here. And I like the way you guys worked in spite of not being able to meet. You kind of divided up the work, and people did different things, and you've gotten a lot accomplished in the time of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, thank you, and keep up the great work.
Thanks.
Peter here. I'd be delighted to work with Mark as being implementers and helping in any way we could.
Okay.
So thank you, Pete.
That's great.
Thanks, Chuck.
I could add something. Thank you for all your work, and I have a vision of creating a page on our website, several pages, showcasing some of the historic properties that we have in our town. It's not just a showcase for our residents, but we have other committees such as the Economic Development Committee that has reached out to businesses, and it's another reason why people would want to move to Morris Township, would want to be in the community, is the historic nature of what we have here, and showing that off on our website, I think, will benefit to the community. So that'll be a next step.
Okay, thanks.
And I would just like to echo the rest of the committee. Thank you, Carol and Chuck, on this hard work. And thanks again, Chuck, for going around the township with me to look at some of the historic structure for the fire department. There's a lot of old firehouses that are now, just foundations left on private property, but I thought it was important to document that, because that is, that's some of the other aspects of our town history that, it might be nice to document for people to see. So thank you for your work on that, and I'm looking forward to working with you on the ordinance.
Thank you, Mark.
So thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing your work shared in the days ahead. We'll look forward to proceeding with hopefully finishing up the ordinance and seeing more work on the other neighborhoods. So
Great.
Thank you so much. Next up, I do have a slight change in the agenda tonight. I would like to address Resolution 172-20 at the beginning of the meeting. This is a resolution that's in our full packet of resolutions, but I'd like to bring it forward and address it at the beginning of the meeting. I cannot see the attendees list from where I am. If there's anyone here from the League of Women Voters, if you could raise your hand, digital, so we can see if there's anyone here. Do you see anyone?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, if anyone was here from the League, I did want to recognize them. The resolution that I'm speaking of here tonight is, we have a resolution honoring the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. And the League of Women Voters was founded right about the same time. The original and continuing purpose of the League is to provide education to voters. It's nonpartisan, and it came about in the beginning when the 19th Amendment was first passed. Women had never voted before, and the League played a special role in educating women on the information they needed, background and voting logistics, if you will, so that they were able to exercise their right to vote. This anniversary is really a historic milestone. I feel absolutely passionate about celebrating its significance. And I did want to highlight two key points about the occasion that stand out to me. First of all, how long and hard our foremothers had to fight to get this most basic right. It took more than 80 years. There was a lot of protest, the writing of letters. Many women went to jail. They were beaten. They went on hunger strikes. And you fast years, and now all women can vote, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't always exercise that right. It makes me sad at election time when sometimes so few voters actually vote. Another thing that stands out to me personally is the extent to which the women's suffrage movement was really not covered in school, in education. And I myself did not know until recently that Black women were not able to vote until the 1960s. And it's kind of an example to me of sort of implicit bias, if you will. It's sort of baked into the cake. It's an example of something baked into the cake about events that are not all that important to cover. It may have changed recently, but I know in my day this was not covered very much at all. Food for thought. So I'd like to read the resolution and have a roll call vote right afterwards. This is a resolution in honor of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Whereas the bold, courageous, and powerful women who fought for the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution on August 18th, 1920, and certification on August 26, 2020, by the U.S. Secretary of State, deserve special celebration on the 100th anniversary of this achievement. Whereas New Jersey was the 29th state to ratify the 19th Amendment on February 9th, 1920. Whereas New Jersey holds a special place in women's suffrage history, as thousands of New Jersey women advocated for the right to vote on the streets, in the newspapers, in the state capitol, and throughout the state. And whereas the 19th Amendment did not guarantee suffrage for all women, including Native American women who did not gain the right to vote until 1924, Asian Pacific Islander American women until 1952, and African American women and Latinos who were victims of voter suppression until passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and 1975. And whereas the fact that today record numbers of women are serving in local, state, and national government and running for office in unprecedented numbers as part of the legacy of these resolute American suffragists. Whereas the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution has played an important role in advancing the rights of all women, therefore the Township Committee of the Township of Morris honors the role of the ratification of the 19th Amendment in further promoting the core values of our democracy as promised by the Constitution of the United States, the opportunity for everyone to learn about and commemorate the efforts of the women's suffrage movement, and the role of women in our democracy. Our desire to continue and strengthen democratic participation and to inspire future generations to cherish and preserve the historic precedent established under the 19th Amendment. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township Committee of the Township of Morris hereby recommends that residents and civic institutions celebrate August 18, 2020 as the 100th anniversary of the passage and ratification of the 19th Amendment, providing for women's suffrage, and August 26, 2020 as the date of its official certification.
Would you like me to move it?
Yeah, sure.
So I would be honored to move Resolution 172-20.
Thank you. Yes, we need a second in that case.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can we do a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Arvanites,
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Brazel,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes. Thank you. I conclude with a quote from Carrie Chapman, who said, "The vote has been costly. Prize it. Understand what it means and what it can do for your country." I think that's good advice for all of us to remember now and in the future. Next, We have a mayor's introductory comments. We have a very full agenda tonight, and I want to begin with a few introductory remarks. Speaking of history, history is going to look back on 2020 as one heck of a year. I'm sure I speak for many when I say that never in my lifetime have I seen so much going on all at the same time. COVID has obviously had a major impact on all of us as individuals and as a community. At the outset of tonight's meeting, I want to comment on two topics that I know are of widespread interest to residents. One is the upcoming public hearing on the Abbey, and the other is the recent power outage. Let me start with the outage. The outage that Tropical Storm Isaias brought to our community on August 4th was extremely difficult, extremely frustrating for all of us. It was a massive event. 5,800 residents in Morris Township went out at 63% of our total. It took about almost a week for everyone in our community to be restored. The damage was not limited to individuals and residents at our township. Also, our pool, Ginty, went out 4 different times. Downed trees were a major cause of this outage. There was even a fatality among one of JCP&L's tree workers, and we send our deepest condolences to that man's family and friends. Besides communication, which was clearly a huge problem in this outage, it's clear to me that vegetation management, which is a very highly controversial issue, that has to be a major topic of discussion going forward, and I'm sure it will be. I wanted to let residents know what our follow-up approach is in dealing with the outage. There's 3 main parts of what we plan to do. First of all, we plan to have a local debriefing session that will include residents. It will include some of our first responders, our professionals, our JCP&L area manager, Bob Flynn, and I want to put a special commendation into him. Bob Flynn did an excellent job for us during this outage. He was there, and the problems that were experienced were more of a system thing. Our particular contact, Bob Flynn, did an excellent job. And he is our sort of connection, in my view, to solutions going forward. I'm also hoping that we can get representatives of Verizon and Cablevision there. There seem to be more problems than I've ever been aware of with restoring services on our cable companies. We don't have them confirmed yet, but we are hoping to. We're hoping to announce a date for this shortly. And our purpose of the debrief, I look at it through the lens of 30 years as an educator. The purpose is to understand what happened and to learn from it so that improvements can be made in the future. So that's one thing we're doing at the local level. We will also, the committee members and some of our professionals will be debriefing with JCP&L. They are organizing that. We do expect to participate. And we also expect communication with BPU. You may have seen the letter that we sent out last week. I thank Mr. Grazel and Mr. Jorfi especially for doing the bulk of the writing on that. It was well written, and that is, working at the BPU level is a big part of our plan going forward. So our main goal in all of our follow-up activities is to channel. We understand people are angry, people are frustrated. What we want to do here in our activities in the days ahead is we want to take this, the anger and the frustration and put it to productive use. To me, that's how you become part of the solution going forward, and that is what we intend to do. So that's a little highlight of our plans going forward on the follow-up to the outage. I also wanted to comment on our upcoming plans for the public hearing on the Abbey. Yesterday, We sent out a messenger. We posted detailed information about our plans for carrying out next week's August 26th public hearing. We also sent this information by hard copy, by mail, to 165 homes in the surrounding neighborhood. We are hoping to send this by email to Liberty Greens residents as well. So if there's anyone from the Homeowners Association that's hearing me tonight, if you could reach out, or we'll be reaching out to you. We hope to send this information by email to Liberty Greens. We are expecting some questions and comments this evening regarding our plans. So to sort of set the stage, I thought I'd just highlight for everyone what our plans are going forward for the public hearing next week. It has always been our intent to offer a hybrid approach, meaning that we offer Zoom access for everyone and in-person access to the greatest extent possible for anyone who's interested. Our main plan is that we will have Township Committee members and professionals who are comfortable present in the meeting room at Town Hall. We will have a large screen and a sound system in the parking lot outside. Video of the meeting will be projected on the large screen. Outdoor seating will be available for anyone who's interested. We will have folding chairs. People may want to bring their own lawn chairs, which are probably more comfortable. Social distancing will be strictly enforced, 6 feet apart for unrelated individuals. And we will be allowing 3 to 5 people at a time into the meeting room to socially distance, to share your questions and comments in person. Our backup plan is if the weather prevents the safe airing of the video and the safe use of the sound system, then we will cancel the outdoor component, the screen and the seating. The meeting will be carried out in that case largely by Zoom, with primary access for most people from your home. For anyone that we know, there are people who have a very strong preference to share their comments in person. And in that case, we will allow the same thing, 3 to 5 people to come into the meeting room at the same time. But in this case, the access to video of the meeting will have to be through your own device, your phone, your iPad. Probably, I would imagine, if we've canceled the video, the access would probably be from your car. We anticipate that most people may not want to do this, but for anyone who would like to do this, we'll make that opportunity available. We also have plans to address some of the tech challenges that have been brought to our attention. We have 2 training sessions planned, one for Thursday tomorrow, 7 to 9 p.m., and the other on Monday from 3 to 5 p.m. And it will be basic training on how to use Zoom. And we also have on our website some links to videos that are good training videos for anyone who prefers to learn on their own. If you have not signed up for the Municipal Messenger, we'll be sending a lot of our information via the Messenger. Please be sure to sign up for that. And anyone who has trouble getting on Zoom in the first place, you can send an email to administration@morristwp.com, include your phone number, and we'll have somebody call you and help you get active on Zoom. So that is our plan, and I hope that you can see we're doing everything possible to accommodate in-person attendance. I personally, all of us, I totally see the importance of in-person attendance, but with COVID, this is the best that we can do. So a majority of us on the Township Committee have come to the conclusion that we owe it to our community to proceed with the public hearing on this proposal, even if full in-person attendance is not possible that evening. So that is the basic summary of our plan. And if does anyone on the Township Committee want to comment on this?
Madam Mayor, it's Peter Mancuso. May I say a few words?
Sure.
Irrespective, I think you've all done a good job of trying to put this. You've done a good job trying to put this together. But using this method and methodology is not efficient. Think of my remarks at the last meeting when we had 4 commentators who took 44 minutes. If the number of participants who want to speak is valid, from what I hear, this could result in 30 to 40 more hours of hearings. The public is basically a stop from normal interaction, as most of us are not versed in Zoom and find it difficult to connect and participate. Residents must be given a proper forum to discuss this matter, and it should be done in a regular, formal setting. The virus wasn't precipitated by us, nor did we want it, but these are extraordinary circumstances, and we can't deny our residents a fair hearing, irrespective of any timetable. This application can wait, but a hurried decision without proper public input could have severe repercussions for years. We must primarily do what is right for the greater majority of our 24,000 residents and not what is best for developers and builders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. To me, that's a good example of, people can differ in their judgments of what's best for the community. And in the communications that I sent, I said that a majority of the Township Committee had agreed to this, knowing very well that you do not agree with the with what was stated.
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
So I have great respect for your opinion, and I thank you for sharing it. And if there's anyone else on the committee that would like to comment?
Nobody else is there. There's only 3 people in the room who's wearing a mask.
John Arvanites, if I may.
John? John?
Yes.
Mr. Arvanites? Yes, sure, go ahead.
So, I respect everyone's efforts and work in trying to get all of this done so that it can be done in a fair and equitable way for not only the residents, but for any developers that come before us. But, to echo what Peter said, that the main thing that we're supposed to be doing is doing what's best for our residents. By having a meeting such as this, I'm not sure if that's necessarily the best thing for our residents. And the reason for that is, and I've mentioned this other times before, being a statistics type of a person, a numbers person, the more people that we gather in one place, the higher the risk is that somebody's going to get sick. And so to me, it seems as if we drank the orange Kool-Aid and we're bringing people together so that we can benefit a developer and not necessarily our residents. So, I know you've said the majority, and I respect that. If that's what we're going to do, we move forward with that. I respect how our government works and everyone's opinion. But again, I just think that just because we're allowed to do such a thing doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do, because we are increasing the chances of somebody getting sick. And we then are adding the fuel to the fire for the reason why sometime in September and October that everything will be shut down again. So again, I look out for what's best for our 26,000 residents, not necessarily a developer or a property owner that's looking to profit from this development. And that's it. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so your primary objection is the safety considerations of bringing people together in larger numbers.
Correct. I'm not opposed to an applicant coming before us to have a meeting. If COVID wasn't among us right now, I would be all for having this meeting. That's what government is for, and that's what we're supposed to do. But because we have the high risk of people getting sick by increasing the numbers that gather, that's the reason why I'm opposed to having this, not because I'm opposed or for any development. They have a right to come before us. I just don't think this is an appropriate time for it.
Thank you. And Mr. Mancuso, your objection is more that you feel that we should reserve this meeting until a time when it can be totally held in person, when COVID is over and we can meet in person normally.
Yes, I agree unequivocally. And I also point out the fact that, not for any particular reason, but Mr. Arvanites and I have a lot of experience in things we do in dealing with the public. And it's incumbent upon us to do what's best for everybody in this township. So I fully state that I consider what I've said to be as important as anything could be.
Thank you. I would say in response to both of your comments, I reject the characterization that I can't speak for anyone else, but that I am doing this for the benefit of the developer. That is not true. I am doing this because I believe that the time has come for us to make a decision one way or the other. There's no guarantee on what's going to happen here. But if the COVID is not going to be over until next year, and it's not going to get any better for in-person meetings in the fall. And so it's a extremely difficult decision. It's complete anathema to me, the thought that we might proceed with this by Zoom only. But in my judgment, it benefits our community to proceed with the hearing, because by not proceeding, we will lose the decision, the ability to make the decision at all. Yes, Mr. Grayson.
Thank you. If I could add, for me, there's a third piece of the puzzle. It's not just the developer and the residents that we're talking about here. It's an actual historic structure that's involved in this discussion too. And one of the objectives in moving, listening to the developer is trying to preserve this historic structure, which really adds character to our town, adds character to Madison Avenue and the adjacent neighborhood. And that building is in great disrepair right now. And the longer we wait, the greater the risk is that we will not have a building to talk about in another year. There's leaks in the roof, the bricks need to be repointed. There's a number of improvements that need to be made to make the building structurally sound again. And the building is just degrading because the developer, quite reasonably, doesn't want to invest in a building doesn't know that it's going to have a purpose in the future. For me personally, the reason why I want to move forward is I'm concerned about the building. I really want to see a way for us to preserve that building. I want to listen to the developer to hear their proposal about what they're putting forward to preserve that building and improving the property. We're going to discuss that. But I feel like if we push this out for another year, because COVID's not going anywhere for another year, we're going to be in the same situation for another year. We really might not have a building to talk about in another year. And I think time, from that aspect of it, time is of the essence, and we do need to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I have some comments.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Jorfi.
I would challenge the idea that the Township Committee is moving forward with this for the benefit of a developer. Me personally, I don't even know who the developer. I know the developer's name, I've never met him in person, and quite frankly, I don't care about his financial well-being. I care about the interests of our residents and of the township. I have met with numerous residents and I've spoken with them. I've visited the property, and I do have concerns with the proposed plan and the proposed redevelopment plan. And if you haven't read the redevelopment plan and you're watching, it is on our website. You can read all the details there. I think it is important to consider that, yes, it is important that now is the time if we're ever going to save this building. But I want to give some more background to the residents as to what has gone on behind the scenes to try to make this meeting come to fruition in order to address the concerns and satisfy some of the needs of our residents who want to take part. I know personally that Mayor Wilson has tried to work with different facilities, whether it is what's at the Mayo or at the Morris Museum, or other outdoor areas to have this meeting fully outdoors, to be able to support the IT infrastructure to then allow people who didn't want to attend in person to watch on video. We looked into having it at the firehouses, at the gazebo. Unfortunately, our IT infrastructure wasn't able to support that to provide a good enough bandwidth for people to reasonably participate online. I wouldn't recommend anyone who's concerned about being in the building to come make a comment indoors next week. However, if you do feel compelled to, I think we've tried to take every step we could to allow that to happen. And we're following the New Jersey state guidelines on COVID. We're following the recommendations from health professionals. And whether we accept this redevelopment plan or deny it, I think it's important for us to consider it now. And I think it's important to us to continue to work with the residents, especially those in that neighborhood, to address their concerns. So again, it's not a perfect scenario. I would love for us to do it outside or do it in a larger building with proper ventilation. Unfortunately, we're dealt the hand we have, and we've come up short in terms of being able to provide that microphone access or that internet access at a different outdoor venue. So I hope the residents understand all the background that's happened to get to this point. And I would challenge the fact that moving forward means this is a done deal, because quite honestly, I don't think it does. So that's my feedback. I appreciate everyone's input from the committee. And I appreciate you, Mayor Wilson, for all the work you've done behind the scenes, because you've worked since early this spring to try to get to this point, just to make sure that everyone who feels compelled to speak has the opportunity to do so in a way that they want to.
Thank you. I will say it's part of it's an example of COVID. In normal times, you just set the date and the time and the location, and that's it. This has been huge work to try to figure out a location, indoor or outdoor, the ever shifting demands or guidelines from the state. So we have really done everything possible and to make it in person. And this is the best that we're able to accomplish at this time.
Yeah, if I could echo just something that Mark just said, is the amount of time that Mayor Wilson has put in on behalf of residents to make sure that we could have or not to make sure, but to try to ensure that we have a hearing where residents could be heard. She's put in a tremendous amount of time behind the scenes that residents don't see, but she has worked tirelessly to ensure that the public has a say in this project. And even if it goes forward on Zoom, we guarantee that everybody who wants to be heard will be heard. There is nobody who is not going to not be heard on this.
It's true. And I will say also, we have been meeting with residents, and some ideas have come up just in the informal discussions. And these are the kinds of ideas that need to be brought forth in the public hearing. And the notion that it's take it or leave it on the content of the plan is just not true. The content, the purpose of the public hearing is to raise questions, share ideas, perhaps make some changes. That's possible. And that's what the public hearing is all about. So with that, does anyone else on the Township Committee have any further comments?
Mayor, may I say one more thing, please?
Sure.
So some of my comments that I made earlier, I guess they were misconstrued. I didn't say that those that are in favor of having this meeting are doing what's best for the developer. So those were not my words, and I don't want anybody to think that, because I know that nobody that sits on our dais and sits on this committee would ever not do what's best for the community. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And I do thank Mayor Wilson for all of the work that you have put in trying to get this to be done. So I don't want to discount any of that in the comments that I made. My concern is protecting the health of our residents. So one other comment that Jeff mentioned about preserving the building, yes, it's nice to preserve a historical building, but the whole building will not be preserved. And when it's connected to another huge structure, I think it actually will take away from what we know now as the Abbey, because now it just becomes a large structure with a piece of it that looks like the Abbey. But that's not the reason, again, why we shouldn't have this meeting. My main concern, again, was from a health standpoint, that it doesn't make sense to have such a meeting right now, because there will be a lot of people that will not be able to participate, and it's not fair for them. So thank you again.
Thank you. And we will be enforcing the social distancing outdoors strictly. So just as a point of information for everyone. Okay, so
Mayor, if I can just get 2 words in here.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Mr. Carlson.
The only reason I want to share is because, you know, I do work in 5 different communities as an attorney representing boards and committees, and I appear in a number of other committees. And I just want to make sure the public understands that the Zoom meeting has become pretty much ubiquitous throughout the state of New Jersey for the time being. This is not something unique to Morris Township that they're going to proceed this way, but this is something that all townships, including all those that I represent, are doing on applications, but you know, or proposals, large and small. I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, I think we'll open it up to public comment, and I'll ask Greg if you could.
Unmuted, Remo.
Remo Caputo,
Yeah,
are you
I'm
there?
here. Hi. Yeah, Remo Caputo, 56 Canfield Road. Gosh, with everything that's been said, I have a lot to address. First of all, and I don't know what order I should do that. I do not want it in any way my comments to feel like it's disparaged the efforts of the committee, because I have no doubt that you've worked to try to accomplish something that's fair. However, I do have some comments with regard to that. First of all, with regard to the outdoor setting, I believe that would have been the total solution if everything was outdoors, and you could have accomplished that purpose. I have spoken with I just was involved with a meeting, a public meeting, and I had 2 young men from a company who worked the meeting, did the sound and the Wi-Fi and all that. And I asked them, I said, could you do this in an outdoor meeting? And they said, oh, absolutely. We have our own Wi-Fi, we have our speakers, we have everything that's needed to do the Zoom if you want, and also have the speakers and the microphones and everything for the public, so that you can speak as in person, have a microphone that will transmit throughout the public area as well as the Zoom. So as to being able to do it at the gazebo, I think that's very possible, and it's probably the best of all the solutions that's possible to achieve. I have no real desire to continue postponing this thing. That's not my goal. And I don't think from the people that I've talked to that we do want to continually postpone it. However, if it's a choice between postponing it and not being able to have a total public meeting, then the postponement would be the better choice. I don't believe that in the don't take this the wrong way, but I don't believe in let's do something even if it's wrong. Okay, that doesn't make sense to me. If we're going to do this, it's got to be done the right way. We don't want to have a situation where whatever the vote is of the town, that is defective because of it's not complies with the statute. I understand Mr. Carlson saying that Zoom is being done everywhere, and he's right. It is being done everywhere, but it hasn't arrived in court yet. It hasn't been. There's no legislative action which blesses it, and until some court says that this is good, we're all guessing. And I don't particularly feel that I would like to make this the test case as to whether or not it works. I would rather get it done the right way and make sure that everyone who has a right to be heard is heard. Now, there's something else that that needs to be brought out on this. Mayor, you were talking about the women's suffrage movements and the protests and all of that went back years ago, and how that changed the legislation. And that's true. But I would ask you, what would have happened if they said, okay, you can protest, but only 2 or 3 at a time. You can hang up you can hold up your sign, you can chant your chant, and then go and we'll talk to the next 3 or 4 of them, instead of running in the streets with all the people that they were. There is a message when groups show up in as a large group and have their say. You can hear them, their attitude, you can see what they have to say. You have Zoom and you have 100 people watching their Zoom cameras. They cannot affect them. They cannot affect the attitude that needs to be conveyed when you have a massive group. It's like watching The Wizard of Oz in black and white. You can get that, you can hear it, you can hear it, but they start that movie in black and white and then it turns to color. Why? Because you could not convey that entire movie in the black and white that starts at the beginning. You need the color. When it's the same thing with something of this nature, you have a great number of people who want to be heard, and they want to be heard in bulk. They don't want to be heard one at a time. They want to sit there, they want to listen to what somebody has to say, and then, then maybe what they have to say later will be affected by what someone else is saying. Now, the group that I've been working, sort of a loose association of people, we have a planner who's going to come, and we want him to testify. And he has a lot of points he wants to make. We're going to try to provide that report to you. I'm hoping to get that report in a couple of days, I'm hoping, and then we will provide that report to the committee, and I will provide a copy of the report to your experts, and well, hopefully you can do that. But I will also be providing a copy of that report to the developer, who I've spoken with, the attorney of which I've spoken with several times, and told him that I would do that. And we've had good conversations. He knows where I stand and where our group stands. I'm not looking to delay him. I'm looking to have a meeting that fully conveys what people have to say. Now, I believe that the outdoor meeting can be done. If it can't be done next week, then maybe the week after. But I can put you in touch with these young men who indicated that they have no problem setting up a site like, because I specifically mentioned Ginty Field and the gazebo, and I said, oh yeah, we have all the equipment necessary to do that. That, other than the issue of bringing people together and having them get sick, that is something I can't address. But it is obviously a concern that needs to be taken into account. But if we're making compromises as to what we're going to do, then that is one that I particularly in person am willing to make. But and I'm in that.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Caputo? On the outdoor plan as we've laid it out, are you saying that's not enough, or are you?
Not enough. It's not enough because
and the reason being,
it would almost be there if you had everyone out there and people. You're going to bring in people 3 or 4 at a time into the council chambers. I mean, that's just not going to make it. You need to have it outside.
Video. People will be able to see. People can be outside. People who are comfortable being in an in-person setting during COVID. That's another process. There's a lot of people that are not comfortable being present in person during COVID.
But you will not be able to see them. And that's just as important as being able to see you.
I couldn't hear you.
You will not be able to see them, which is just as important as them being able to see you. You have to be able to see the crowd. You need to be able to assess their demeanor, what's making them happy, what's not making them happy, what they agree with, what they don't agree with. Those are things that are reactions of the crowd, which happen in a meeting. Look, I've been doing this for 40 years. I've sat as a developer's attorney in front of a board and had 200 people behind me who were not happy. And I know what that does, okay? And I know how that communicates to a board. And you don't have that if you had 2 people walking in at a time saying, oh, gee, you know, here's my picket sign and you know, we will overcome, and then leave and have somebody else come in. That's just not gonna, that does nothing. It does not convey any intent.
Could you wrap it up? We usually go 5 minutes. It's been quite a bit more. I very much understand what you're saying.
Now, let me ask you a question. I think it's very important. When we have whatever form this meeting takes, are you going to limit everybody to 5 minutes? Because I have to tell you what I have to say and ask for. It's going to take a lot more than 5 minutes. I have questions for a lot of the experts, and I have my expert who's going to have questions. And I think we're going to have, you know, it's going to take more than 5 minutes. And we really want a full ability to be heard. We have to understand, and I know that some people have misinterpreted this, but when we say that nothing has been, that the public has not been able to participate and no comments from the public, what I was referring to, because I do know that I have had conversations with the developer's attorney, and and I know that you personally have gone to see some of the people in the last week or so. But for the last 2 years, I think this started in 2017, that this project started moving forward, and it was able to do that legally without any input from the community. That was legal. It's a redevelopment plan. You get to do that. But the end result of that is that plan is designed without taking into consideration any of the input of what the neighbors feel. Mr. Dingler.
I will say, Mr. Caputo, I agree with you on that. I've been advocating that we have community input from the beginning before we get into the legal process. And it is my understanding that there have been conversations with the planner and the neighbors, and that there has been an exchange, and that
we had a meeting.
And those ideas should be brought to the plan, in my opinion.
We did have a meeting with the developer. He was very gracious. Well, not the developer, but his attorney and the planner. They're very gracious. And we sat down. It was a nice meeting. They listened to what they had to say. Our main concern was density, and they made it clear that they're not going to budge on density. And we still try to come up. And we have the report, and we're going to talk to them. I've spoken to them recently about some other ideas. You know, like I said, Mr. Dingler and the people who are adjacent to the property, they're going to have, they're going to have a real serious problem. And they have a 15-foot buffer. We're trying to get them to move the parking to the other side of the building.
Another idea that has come up there is underground parking.
I came up with underground parking. Well, that's not entirely true. I'm the first one who, after I was told about it, brought it up, because I spoke to an architect who worked for the architect who designed the last building that was going to be on that site, and they had underground parking. And so I talked to the developer.
My understanding was, so it's not impossible.
Well, that would be a very good thing, I think. I think that there might be some opposition by someone. I don't know, but I was told by
the public hearing.
Now we are getting into the merits of the
Mayor, if I may, I think we're going to.
I know, we need to move on.
We should be getting into the merits of the application. Just
yes.
I feel that what needs to happen is that if in fact there's going to be a hearing, then it should be outdoors with everybody out in the gazebo, or I had even suggested that it be done at the Abbey. That would be the perfect location. People can see what's going on. It would be the perfect place to do it. You get the applicant to approve it, and there's the room, and it would just be the absolute perfect location to do this. But sure, and like I said, there are people who have the equipment who can make that happen. So that there's the Wi-Fi and there's everything that you need to do. But short of that, then it should be done at the gazebo. Like I said, I
Okay,
do not want to
Mr.
see it
Caputo,
affect.
we are going to move on. We thoroughly understand your views. I thank you for sharing them. And you've made some interesting, thought-provoking points. But we are going to move on.
Mr. Caputo, can you share that contact info for the company that does outdoor? Is he muted?
No, he's
Okay, he'll share it. Let's move on to Mr. Dimbley.
I will, Mr. Gray, I'll make a picture of the card and I'll email it to you.
Thank you. That would be helpful.
Okay.
Before we continue, Mr. Dale, is there any way to get my name right in my box here?
You need to do that.
You can right-click it on yourself and change it.
Okay, we'll do.
If you go to the participant list and click on your name, you have the ability to
I got it. Okay, got it.
Okay, next we have is Mr. Dingler.
Hi, yes, Jim Dingler here.
Hi, Jim. I need to state your address for the record, please.
Sure, I live at 47 Crescent Drive, just behind the Abbey. And so I just wanted to chime in and say a couple of things. Again, I appreciate you know, the attempts to try and be creative and provide a better atmosphere for a meeting than sort of the worst case, which would be Zoom only. You know, I acknowledge that, and obviously this whole Abbey issue and redevelopment is very, very important to me as I live, you know, as I say, you know, I'm one of the bordering neighbors. And so, you know, I want to make sure, and I'm going to be amplifying and reiterating some of the things that Mr. Caputo said, but you know, we want a fully fair and full review and comments session. And obviously we have to do that in surroundings that people feel safe about. A Zoom only meeting, in my view, is not acceptable under any circumstances. Even if a rainstorm floats along and cancels the outdoor part of the participation there, then I don't think we say, well, you know, we were gonna have some in person, but we're not now. So I don't think that can be. I don't think that should be the outcome if for some reason the in-person isn't able to take place. And not only that, I agree with Remo that, you know, we really feel that the full participation and in-person participation is something that we have to have on an issue that is this important and is this far-reaching for the community and this long-lasting of a result. You know, I think if there's any way possible to move forward with an outdoor participation, full outdoor participation, you know, I would recommend that we do our best to try and implement that.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Anything less than you know, full participation is just going to dilute the message, as Remo mentioned, that you would get in a full participation meeting. Both sides need to see each other. Both sides need to look each other in the eyes and understand, you know, understand what's being said and understand the rationale for the reason it's being said. I would also say that, yes, we did meet with the RH folks briefly 5 minutes into that meeting, they said that they were not willing to discuss the intensity of the project. But the problem is that the intensity of the project, the scope of the project, the massive parking, the tiny setbacks is all a result of the intensity of the project. So I disagree that the intensity of the project can be taken off the table for negotiation. You know, the site coverage with the building structures, again, the massive parking lots, the tiny setbacks. You know, for myself, I'm very concerned about 60 cars parked within eyesight of my backyard, and with 30 sets of headlights shining into my backyard. I just see that as a very uncomfortable and very unsatisfactory outcome. So,
how do you feel about the underground parking, if that were a possibility?
Mayor, I don't think we should be talking about the merits of the case.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
We should be talking about whether we're holding the meeting or not, but
Yes.
not the merits of the case.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Mr. Grayzell is right. We should not be discussing the merits of the case. So my apologies for that.
oh, okay, no problem. I think I've registered my issue with the parking back here on the backside, especially when there's plenty of setback and open space on the Madison Avenue side.
There you go.
Okay.
And the other thing I would just mention
here is that we should not be discussing the merits of the case at this. The merits of the case should be discussed at the public hearing. What we can discuss here is the format that we've got in place for holding the public hearing.
Sure. Okay, well, thanks very much for the floor. My last comment is just that, you know, I think in a complex situation like this, it's hard enough for the Township Council to process the volume of information that's going to be provided and the volume of testimony, the volume of participation in the best of circumstances. And so I would just say that, you know, in a Zoom or a virtual type setting, I think that multiplies the difficulty of your job, frankly, of trying to, you know, boil down all of the testimony, all of the participation. And I think that, I actually think that a full in-person participation helps the Township Committee in terms with, you know, their consideration of the project and their consideration of the outcome.
Thank you.
If I could, Mayor, can I make one comment?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Grayson.
This is to address the neighbors that live in close proximity, including Mr. Dingler, because I did write this to Mr. Dingler and another resident, and I think that the rest of the Township Committee would be supportive of this idea that those surrounding the property will have the support of the committee to have fences and plantings and walls and whatever is needed to be done to ameliorate the impacts from the property on the adjoining, if the project were to go forward. The Township Committee would certainly be supportive of doing whatever is possible so that you would have as little, and I wouldn't say little impact, but as to ameliorate the impact of, like you said, the cars and the lights and such, with improvements to the bordering structures like the fences and walls. So we definitely would be supportive of that, and we'll be behind you and the rest of the residents in those aspects of the project.
And those things will be discussed at the public hearing.
Yes.
Very much part of the plan. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Dingler. Is there anyone else from the public?
Dr. Lynn Siebert?
Yes.
Dr. Lynn Siebert?
Yes, hello.
Hello, please say your name and address for the record.
Sure. Dr. Lynn Siebert, 178 Hillcrest Avenue, Morris Township. Hello? Yes? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
All right. I just wanted to share something and make sure that the Township Committee members had copies of the NJDEP warning that was issued after the dumping of large tree parts into the wetlands on the green strip between East Lake and West Lake Boulevard. I know some of you are aware of that. I just wanted to be a good citizen and share it with the entire Township Committee, and also some additional follow-up information, which I have sent to everybody by email as well, but I just thought I would call your attention to that email. And to just relate that the DEP did an investigation and issued this warning saying that that dumping was not approved or authorized, and that they will be watching out for such actions in the future, basically. They also recommended that the large tree parts, there was 2 very, very big trees that were essentially cut down by JCP&L and then dumped into the wetlands on a steep slope. And you'll be able to see from the materials that I sent that they recommended that the tree parts should be left in place to minimize additional impacts on the sensitive areas in the green strip because it was a steep slope area. And I wanted to thank the township for their support for underwriting the steep slope meadow mix that we did go and plant to help stabilize some of the soils in that area, and also mention that the DEP had taken a very positive attitude about any plantings to help stabilize the soil in that area, and suggested that the planting of native trees and shrubs in the future in the green strip would be something that they would look very favorably on. So we recognize that you've got, as is evident from tonight's discussion, and also just anybody who's aware and alert to what's going on, that you have more than enough on your plate right now. But just as something to consider for a future time after COVID, if the Township Committee might authorize or initiate a discussion about the possibility of coming up with a replanting plan for the green strip in this area to address some of the areas that were emptied. And if those could be native plants, either trees or shrubs, to just help again to stabilize the soil in that neck of the woods. And finally, I just wanted to mention that I discovered in the process of some of the conversations with the DEP that the green strip is encumbered by green acres. So just in case you were not aware of it, I included information on that as well. And it was primarily to just make sure that everybody was informed and fully knowledgeable about the situation with this particular strip of land. I also, before I end, I just wanted to commend the township for their recognition of the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. I think that the resolution was really moving and very well taken. And I just wanted to commend all those involved with drafting that for making an acknowledgement of something that has been so important and meaningful, not only for our community, but for our country. So.
Thank you so much. Agreed.
Can I ask her a question?
Yes, Mr. Glazer has a question.
Dr. Siebert, did you start off by saying that on that steep slope, some seeding had already taken place?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. We did get some funding to cover the cost of those seeds. Those were researched by Susan and John Landau, who are very knowledgeable about ecological balances. And we had approached, Mr. Quinn had offered to help us with that, and he did provide some funding, a limited fund, so that we could purchase the seeds, and we went out with volunteers under the supervision of the Landows and put in some. These were just meadow mix for steep slopes, ryegrass seeds. They were not plants, that were established. It was just seeds.
Good. I had not heard that, so I'm happy to hear it.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
for helping organize that planting.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we hope to do more in the future, because we are concerned about potential for erosion when there was disturbances before, and a lot of storm debris and other trees were removed from the center. So those are things that we monitor and we're cautious about, because there are wetlands downhill from some of the parts, and there were a lot of deep ruts that had been growing in erosion during the last months.
I have a question. Did you, it came up at last week's environmental commission meeting that you were going to send Mr. Quinn the, you sent that?
I did.
DEP recommendation to leave the parks?
Yes, I included Mr. Quinn in the information that I sent out this evening, actually. I was just gathering all the information, and since I'm working from home full time, I'm still have to grab my opportunities when I have them. But I did include him as well as the full committee, and I have also shared this with the Environmental Commission.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Mr. Quinn?
I was just going to confirm that we did receive that email just before the meeting tonight.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet myself. And when we talk about a replanting plan, you're talking about adding more of the grasses to prevent further erosion, correct?
Well, what the wording was from the DEP was specifically, perhaps adding some native trees and shrubs to the green strip. There was concern about the open areas being prone to having more invasive species coming in, and of course additional erosion. So he said, native trees and shrubs as well. So again, we understand that there are a lot of constraints on time and manpower and funds, and we're certainly willing to work with the township on a long-term basis, but we would like to just request that be something that the Township Committee will consider in the future, and potentially have a meeting with our organization to see what we can do to map something out with professional guidance.
Okay, sounds good. Understood. I would suggest, I remember that there's Mr. Landau, I believe, is going to do a presentation at the September Environmental Commission meeting on invasive species.
Yes.
So there's a relationship there with native, so that could be part of the discussion at that time.
Right, and we have worked with Mr. Landau on removals of invasives, and in fact we have undertaken some de-vining of some of the trees that were being choked that are within the green strip and wetlands areas under his supervision.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Is there anything else?
No, that's it, and just wanted to commend you on all the work that you are doing so capably.
Thank you. Thank you. We are definitely working hard, I will say that. Next up,
James O'Reilly.
Mr. O'Reilly.
Oh. Hang on.
We're gonna unmute. Are you?
He's unmuted.
Okay, you're unmuted, Mr. O'Reilly.
5 minutes.
Been unmuted several times.
We had this problem before. Okay, Mr. O'Reilly, I don't know if you can hear us, but from our end, you are unmuted. And it appears that you're having trouble, so we're gonna go. Is there another person? Is that it?
No, there is two other people.
Okay, so Mr. O'Reilly, we're gonna put you on hold. Hopefully you'll figure out what's going on, and we're gonna go to the next person.
Just unmuted. I thought I.
There you are. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. O'Reilly, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks for sending the information about the Abbey to the Liberty Green residents. I'd like to credit the intent and the content of everybody who's spoken. And I'm leery about attending any public meeting in the time of virus. And I would not attend any such meeting. However, the Township Committee was not motivated by a desire to hold virtual meetings. The Township Committee was under public pressure not to hold virtual meetings only. They were told, I think it was last month, that groups opposed to this development, or at least who wanted neighborhood groups, would not tolerate virtual meetings only, so that the Township Committee was operating under public pressure. Also, I want to ask about, there's an item on the agenda about the old Convent Station post office being demolished.
We'll get to that during resolutions, but, well, it's public hearing. Yes, you can comment on that now, sorry.
Okay, because I was going to say the prior speaking, though I'm glad she spoke, did speak of other things. Anyway, so is that the presently operating? I know it says old.
No, it's the building that's across the street.
Oh, that little building.
Post office, it's very old, it's unoccupied.
The parking lot.
Pardon?
The building right next to the big parking lot from by the church or for this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's what you're talking about. Okay, because I was very worried when I saw this, but I just.
No, it's not the existing used post office.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Township Committee was not primarily motivated by a desire to hold virtual meetings. That they were under public pressure not to hold.
Yes, and agreement on our part. I mean, we prefer in-person meetings if at all possible.
Right. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
No, I kind of remute myself. There.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Next up is that Heidi Ross?
No.
It's not.
H.N.S. Ross?
I believe that's Heidi Ross, but I'm not positive.
I'm here.
There you are. You're unmuted. Please say your name and address for the record.
Certainly, I'm Heidi Ross, 6 Deegan Lane.
Good evening.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all very much for your very hard work. It's very evident that you have been working hard, and I want to thank you for that. I'd also like to acknowledge the resolution for the 100-year vote. I think, Kathy, it was a wonderful thing you bringing that forward. I know that means a lot to you, as it does to me, and certainly for voters in general and the country as well. I would like to note that you very carefully pointed out that the women that forged forward, you referred to them as suffragists, which is a very fine distinction from suffragettes, which is a term that's often used, and that was actually a derogatory term that suffragists did not embrace. And so I thank you for your sensitivity there. So I'm going to move on to the matters of the Abbey. I am not a neighbor, in case anybody doesn't know that's listening, that is directly affected, but I'm not in favor of the project. Mainly in agreement for the reasons that Mr. Dingler brought forward. And that is the intensity of the project and the far-reaching and long-lasting effects that this project will have, not only on the local residents, but on this entire township that and I implore anyone else in the community who's listening to think about the impact of having this development on our community and what it means. Kathy, you made one comment that I would like to specifically clear up before I move forward. And you said something that by not meeting, we will lose the ability to make a decision at all. What exactly did you mean when you said that? I'm not clear about that.
But what I meant by that is that COVID is going to go on indefinitely. It's a prediction, but
right.
I mean, it's widely predicted that there's going to be a second wave in the fall. It's unlikely that we'll be able to meet again normally in person anytime before next spring. And it's just not reasonable to expect that the developer will wait until COVID is over for us to have an in-person meeting. I don't think they'll do that. And so if at some point, it's part of why I wanted to meet in July, because I felt we did actually have better conditions for in-person. At that time, the state guidelines were up to 100 people. Since then, they've been reduced to 25 people indoors.
Mm-hmm.
So the restrictions are strengthening, which is, to me, what I did predict. So, you know, it's COVID, it's uncertain, but if I don't think it's reasonable to expect that we can wait until 100% normal in-person attendance resumes.
So this perception that you have that the developer may fall out of interest with this plan if this meeting does not happen and they are not given some guidance or some conversation doesn't happen in a constructive way. Is that your perception, or is that some kind of understanding that either the township technical committee or the township committee has ascertained from speaking to the developer?
I have not spoken to the developer, but it's
or has the technical committee conveyed that to you, or in any way, or that this is this more your perception that they're not likely to stick around?
My perception that they are not likely, and many people seem to believe that.
Many people being the other township committee members?
I can't speak for them, but that's my perception, yes.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, I would agree with that assessment. I don't think they're going to stick around. And I also, I don't want to say it's a warning, but just be careful what you wish for, because there is going to be something built on that property. I mean, the developer owns the property and he has some rights to build. So whether it's not the intensity of the current proposal, there will be something on the table in the future. So something will go in there. I don't know what it would be if it's not the restoration hardware proposal.
I think it appears to me likely, and I've said this many times, that as a community, we're sort of facing a fork in the road decision. Either we could select some kind of project along this line, or it's likely that condos will be proposed. I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption. And from talking with a lot of residents, people have differing views on that.
So thanks for clearing that up, Kathy. I would like to just, again say that I think that Remo and Jim's perception that a two-way, fully participative meeting is actually what is in order for this. And based on your perception that a lot of people want to attend, whether, however it turns out, I think is correct. And so I want to know if the township you know, how long this meeting next week is planning to take, and if everyone can't be heard, what will happen afterwards.
Well, we do have a plan for a second meeting if needed. And speaking for myself, I'm assuming a second meeting will be needed. So we're starting at 6 o'clock. We'll probably go to 10, I would imagine. And then we have a second meeting planned for September 3rd, 6 o'clock, probably till 10 as well.
And so, and if that doesn't also, I mean, I know that you had committed to voting at the subsequent township committee meeting, which I believe will be the 17th of September.
Whatever that third Wednesday in September is. Right.
So, you know, you're hoping to have sufficient number of meetings to address all these concerns and digest them and make conversation with the developer and edit the plan or whatever these things are called that will get included in the plan, and have that all done for the September meeting. Is that kind of the longer term scope and idea?
We'll have our meeting on the 26th. We'll have our second meeting if needed on the September 3rd. I would anticipate that suggestions will be made, and some of them will be incorporated. A decision point comes in the process when additions or changes are made. There is a legal decision as to whether such change is minor or major.
Right.
And if it's deemed to be minor, we can just build it right into the plan. If it's deemed to be major, then we need to reintroduce the plan. That's the way it works.
Okay. Alrighty. So if at any point you're getting to the point where you're feeling like it's major, will you convey that to the public so that we will then, you know, the public would then feel comfortable that the vote will be moving to a non-approval of this based on that? Or
that these things will come up as part of the public hearing.
I see.
Okay. I see Mr. Ross in there. Do you want to weigh in?
Sure, Ms. Ross, if I may.
Yes.
If there are changes to the plan that are made or sought to be made that are deemed to be substantive changes to the plan, it would need to be returned to first reading and then republished, etc. If there are changes to the plan, you know, the mayor is correct. When she's minor, major, the language that the law uses is substantial or non-substantial. You know, if we're moving commas and doing small things, that can be done without going back to first reading. But if there are important changes that are done, it would need to go back to first reading.
Right. Okay. So I'll just carry forward with some ideas I would like the Township Committee to consider. One is, I would like to...
I just want to say one thing. We're not discussing the substance of the plan.
Yes, I understand
so if you
that.
want to just like highlight that quickly, but we're not gonna discuss it.
Right. So I'm wondering and asking if the Environmental Commission and the Fire Department are going to be present at the meeting and feedback on their interpretation of the impact that the plan will have. And the reason I'm pointing those two entities out is because I know from having reviewed the plan, and I'm no expert, but spent quite a bit of time, that a number of very large mature trees are going to be taken down, which is going to increase water or, you know, running water on the property, because those trees will no longer be drinking. And so that will have some impact to the area environmentally, especially for those neighbors nearby. And the fire department, in terms of the turning radiuses that would be necessary in order for them to effectively extinguish a fire at the property at the time. So I've spoken to Chief Nunn, but at the time I did, he did not have time to review. So I would just ask the Township Committee.
One thing I will say here, Heidi, and
yes,
Mr. Carlson will want to weigh in on this. This is a redevelopment plan. This is a sort of a 30,000 foot view. I believe that some of the things you're touching on would be considered at the site plan level.
Yeah, I'm not really in agreement with that because
I do believe that's a legal issue, isn't it, Mr. Carlson?
It is, and it is, and I'm happy to say you're both correct.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's what we put into the redevelopment plan is what's going to be required of the redeveloper,
right?
And then later, the planning board on site plan review is going to have to review whether or not they've hit those marks.
Right. And I think that's a very important point to make here, because that is exactly the kind of things that, because if the fire lanes are not addressed, because of the intensity and density and the parking and the internal roadways and the circle out front and the whole rest of it, it is so intense and so dense that changing the necessity to expand those roadways or lanes and the parking is going to be so difficult when it goes to site plan, it will be an impossibility. So that's just my perception. So I would just like the Township Committee to reach out to the fire department and get some feedback at this phase, if you would. I think that's
good points.
I would also like to personally.
Hey, you do need to wrap up. It's been, I think, about 15 minutes, so.
I would just like to mention Jeff Grazel's question about the structure, because the building has been there for 100 years and it is not going to collapse. What is more likely to collapse the existing historic structure is rushing into a plan or encouraging underground parking, which could actually undermine the foundation of the historical building. So I just want to throw that out there. Mr. Gorfie, I know that you said you don't really know who the developer is. I urge you to go on to Restoration Hardware Gallery YouTube videos and see what this thing is going to look like once it is standing, because I can't agree more with Mr. Arvanites that the historic aspects of this building will not be maintained once this thing is built. They will not be maintained. That's my personal opinion. So again, I just urge you to hold this meeting in a capacity where the outdoor people can interact with the professionals and the Township Committee. I think, like Remo said, it is imperative that the Township Committee and the other professionals be able to see and understand the feelings and the comments and the interaction between the public, which I think is a pivotal, influential part of what the Township Committee needs to absorb at this meeting in order to really execute your desires to do what is in the best interest of the citizenship. And so
this is understood. We get it. So please wrap up.
Wonderful. And my last comment is, I know that on the resolutions is a mention to renew the plenary license for the Restoration Hardware. I just, I would like to know how that comes into play in all this. And I would also like to know how, whether the Township Committee is aware that the property is probably going to be sold. I heard from a commercial realtor that the property is likely to be sold from New York City Skyline Realty / Tom Maioli to Restoration Hardware. And I wonder if the Township Committee is aware of that. And I'm wondering if the sale isn't pending this decision. And so I just wanted to get a feel for the pressure that the Township Committee may be feeling to make this decision, because this is a big real estate deal and it's all kind of, it's likely that it's all hanging out there pending the outcome of this vote. And, you know, and Mark Gorfie mentioned.
Hey, that's not my concern. I don't think it's anybody's concern on this committee. Our concern is what's the plan and how does that impact our community and what changes are going to come out of the public hearing. I'm not concerned about whatever sale is going to occur.
Okay. All right. That's good to hear. I'm happy about that. Because I wouldn't think that would, you know, that wouldn't be a good thing. You know, if that was overshadowing. So I appreciate your feedback there.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on. I thank you for your comments. They're thought-provoking as usual. And I'm sure we'll see you at the public hearing. So do we have...
Joseph?
I cannot see that.
Joseph Runsdorf?
Yes, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Could you please say your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Joseph Runsdorf. I live at 7 Egbert Hill Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. So firstly, I'd like to congratulate Melissa, if she's still with us, and her efforts toward the community. Fantastic. I've known her for a very long time. Secondly, I'd like to, in brevity, start saying that you guys need to, I'm sorry, my cousin has been to call me back an hour ago. I don't know how to mute it. I apologize for this.
All right, it's going to stop soon.
Yeah. My cousin is calling me from Japan, actually. So, I'll try to be brief here. You guys need transparency like Jeff promised when he initially ran. And I'm not seeing it from the Township Committee these days. I know you're working very, very hard, but we also need to scale back the development in this area. I moved here from New York City for exactly the reason of not having to battle traffic every place I went. And with the building that's going on around here, it's absolutely incorrigible. I understand that revenue runs towns and townships and communities, but it's really getting out of hand. The whole thing with the Abbey that I've been listening to this entire night sounds horrific to me. You must take the public interest very much in mind. COVID or not, the transparency has to be complete. I just don't understand how this development can just go on unfettered without any idea of the traffic that it's you know, I mean, everything is just condo after condo after condo. The whole thing with Hewlett-Packard became a mess. Everywhere I look, there are more vehicles every day. And I think you guys better look with more than financial glasses on what's going on in our community. It shouldn't take me a half an hour to get to ShopRite. That's pretty much all I have to say this evening.
I just ask you to clarify. I'm not 100% sure what you're talking about by transparency.
So this meeting that you're talking about with the Abbey and not having everybody in the community able to participate is an issue. For years, we had no recording of any of the Township Committee meetings. Everything was behind closed doors. So that's become a bit better. But now with COVID, we're kind of reverting to the old way. And, you know, I don't think it's.
I will say, Mr. Runsdorf, that there are people who have exactly the opposite view. That we've gotten a lot of feedback. I know this is differing opinions, but there are some people who feel that these Zoom meetings actually make attendance at the meeting more accessible.
And I agree with that. And I agree with that, but I'm not always available to attend, and they get postponed and things like that. So I agree that Zoom is
I mean,
easier.
as far as transparency, Zoom in some ways for some people is actually an asset.
Okay, but do people get to comment, really? I mean, I sat here for 2.5 hours waiting to say what I'm saying now.
We put the public comment in the beginning of the meeting.
I had my hand raised since the beginning of the meeting. But it's okay. I mean, I think, look, Mr. Dilbert had a lot more, on the ball to say than I have, that without a doubt. He's certainly affected by this. I'm just saying that the unfettered building that's going on in this township is ridiculous. And I'm just speaking much more broadly. It's absurd. Yeah. I moved here for the exact reason that I told you earlier. And now I'm finding that I'm living in a midget New York City. I have to worry about COVID. I shouldn't have to worry about so much about COVID with the amount of people that I'm supposed to be around or need to be around. And yet everywhere you go now, there's hundreds of people around. So there's 200 people in ShopRite socially distancing, but you can't have a meeting with people in the meeting house, in the courtroom.
Right, we are, okay, we are going to be having it outdoors, we're hoping. And
right, but if it rains, then what, right?
Right.
Right.
Mayor, can I chime in real quick?
Sure, Mr. Jorfi, go ahead.
Mr. Rensdorf, I appreciate your comments, and I agree that, I think we're all concerned with the rate of development, and I think, you're talking about not wanting more condos. I think you should also realize that the potential is if the developer doesn't go through or the plan's not accepted, that whole plot could become condos and increase traffic too. So that's something else to factor. But I did want to say one thing. You talked about transparency and video recordings. That would not be possible if it wasn't for Mayor Wilson, who single-handedly brought video to township committee meetings herself. She founded her own foundation on her own free time before she was elected, volunteered her time to show up to the meetings when literally members of the committee were shunning her for doing so, to get those videos up for members of the public to see when they were not able to attend the meetings. Just want to provide that clarity, because we wouldn't be having these videos online if it was not for Mayor Wilson and when she was volunteering to do so before she was elected.
Thank you.
So that's,
and I will say, I have worked hard on that since May of 2015. That's when it started.
Yeah, Jeff and I have had conversations about this even before he was elected as well. And it's very commendable. And that's terrific that you were able to do this.
Yep. So, okay, anyway, did you want to say something?
Yes, if I could chime in just on one thing that Mr. Rundorf just said about following the tax dollar. If I may quote you, I don't know if that's a quote, paraphrase you, but I'm speaking for myself. The tax dollar or the rateable, it has nothing to do with my decision process for this property. It's all about what's best for the township. It's consideration of, like I said, preserving the historic building. I don't care about rateables anymore. Morris Township has enough rateables to survive, to sustain itself. So it's not about rateables whatsoever, whether we're talking about the Abbey project tonight or later on we're going to be talking about the proposed Marketplace Mall up at the Colgate site. It's not about the dollars. It's about providing a development that gives Morris Township some kind of benefit in some sort of way. And if at the end of this meeting on the Abbey, we feel that the historic nature of the building is being lost in the midst of all the other buildings that are on the property, then we might not vote for it. At the end of the day, we need to hear it and be able to make that decision. But for me, it's about what's the benefit to Morris Township and what's the best thing for us to do. And in my mind, I see a beautiful building that I'd like to preserve. At the end of the day, if that's not what we're getting out of the deal, then we won't vote for it. And we'll move on and see what else is proposed. But I agree. There's been a tremendous amount of development, mostly in Morristown, not in Morris Township. And it's getting harder to move around. So,
well, at risk of stepping on your toes, I might say that that building is a very attractive building and should be preserved in a very modest way, not some crazy development that it sounds like is going to be going on there. But in addition to that, in Morristown, I agree, on Morris Street, the entire little strip mall is going to be condos as well. So we, yes, live in the township, but we also live in the town. Okay, it's that you like to think they're separate, but they're really not. It's all
we're connected.
Yeah, we're connected, but we have
this building, whether it goes on in Morristown, Morris Township, it's just out of control. And you know, we just don't need more residents, honestly. More vehicles, 2 vehicles for every condo virtually. I mean, you know the numbers. You can't get down East Hanover as it is before this development went up. And by the way, I will say that that development is the biggest eyesore I've ever seen in my life. Those are the most hideous buildings that you guys approved. I can't even believe that you allowed this.
This committee didn't.
What are you talking about?
So those buildings are not in Morris Township?
I don't know which buildings you're talking about.
By where Menon used to be.
Yes, that's Morris Township.
That is Morris Township, yes.
That is Morris Township.
That was part of the redevelopment plan for the old Colgate Menon property.
That's correct. Yeah, those
Okay.
buildings are.
Well, we appreciate your comments, and
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else?
Yes, we do.
Mayor, may I interrupt for 1 second? Can
Mr.
we?
Archimedes?
Yeah,
Is that you?
it is. It's John
Oh,
Archimedes. Yes. If it's possible to really try to stick to the 5-minute discussion for each person.
Understood. We got it.
Yeah,
We will do that.
and also to stay on, to make sure that we stay on the topic of the kind of meeting that we're having. Again, it's not that we don't want to hear.
Mr. Archimedes, this is public. It's public comment, so
Okay, got it.
people can comment on whatever they want. But we did anticipate a lot of comments about the Abbey. So, but it's not just on the Abbey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, understood. We are supposed to have a 5-minute limit, and we've been pretty generous. But I'm going to emphasize, could subsequent speakers please keep it to 5 minutes.
Frank McKenna.
Frank McKenna, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Frank. Could you please say your name and address for the record?
Certainly, Mayor. Frank McKenna, my spouse, Anna Maria McKenna, is also here. We're at 48 Crescent Drive.
Thank you. Welcome. Go ahead.
Just wanted to strongly reiterate both what Remo and my neighbor Jim Dingler said, and certainly Heidi. Couldn't agree more with what Mr. Runsdorf just talked about regarding the Abbey. My wife and I and many of our neighbors just strongly want to reiterate, we would strongly need an in-person meeting to be fairly represented throughout the discussion of the Abbey redevelopment plan. I was able to join this meeting tonight about an hour ago. And when I think about sitting potentially under a tent in the parking lot of the township building with outside noises, trying to listen attentively to whether it be your response, Mayor, and I have to tell you, the acoustics alone tonight on my indoor desktop are hard to listen to and hard to hear you succinctly with just the echo noise in that room over Zoom. The best speaker audio equipment and system that you could use outside in that parking lot with ambient noise, it's going to be pretty darn hard for a lot of us, many of us, if not all of us, to ascertain completely what the discussion is going to be on the night of the 26th. So when we're outside trying to listen attentively and then get brought in eventually to state our concerns, I can't imagine how many people are going to be able to listen attentively and grasp all of the conversation. So even on my desktop here inside my house, the projection of your voice, and it's not you, it's just the acoustics, are hard to hear internally. I appreciate the wonderful Zoom webinar training that was sent out, very nice. But acoustically outside, it's going to be hard. So I'm not going to carry on for more than 5 minutes, but I am here to say we desperately want an in-person discussion. It can be outside at the gazebo on Ginty Field. It could be wherever you folks choose to do it. But I think it is a real difficult situation, and I get it. COVID has done this, but this is a real difficult situation within a tremendously big decision. And to do it in this way would be a real unfair, unjust situation for residents, neighbors, community, people in this town who have really worked hard to help this town become what it is, to kind of do that to them at this point with this project. So.
Understood. I do have one question for you, Mr. McKenna. Can you explain how the acoustics would be different at Ginty compared to over outside the municipal building here, the parking lot? How would the acoustics be different?
I've been to the concerts at Ginty through the gazebo. It certainly sounds to me a lot better, and maybe because it's music or entertainment, but it just seems like the echo coming from your voice. I mean, I hear Mark Gorfrey so much better, so much easier, and maybe again because of his arrangement or setup, but I just think no matter where we are outside, it's going to be difficult. The point of it is you folks want this meeting to be as mutually represented, both internally from your standpoint and externally from our standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So an in-person discussion, I think, is vital to allowing the whole community to represent their concerns, their worries, and their desires about this project.
Understood. And as far as the acoustics on my mic, I am on a computer where I have the audio on my computer muted. So there may be some echo on that. I'm not sure. No?
Yeah, I mean, it just
he's shaking his head. No?
And it just begs the question.
People, if they hear you.
Okay. All right, we will.
And it just begs the question. It just begs the question, you know, if people who are at home that night or subsequent nights can't really grasp the entire flow of conversation, that's a problem too. So I get it. I know you're working very hard. We all appreciate it. Not unlike every community family in this town, on this street, in this state, and in this country, working hard to try and overcome their own dilemmas with COVID.
Absolutely. It's challenging.
It's challenging.
No doubt about that.
We appreciate all your hard work. I'm sure you appreciate all of our efforts in trying to make this as fairly and as justly as it can be. One last note. My understanding, Mayor, you came and visited a backyard of our neighbor. Wonderful.
Yes.
Mark, I understand you did the same. I think that's terrific. I cannot imagine the other three members would not want to do the same thing prior to any sort of discussion and or vote, I would say to all 5 of you, pretty imperative for you to see what the scope would be for this neighborhood, and thinking logically, if it was your backyard, how, I guess, interested would you be to be coming around to see what that scope would be? So thank you to Mark, thank you, Mayor, for at least taking the time at this very last minute prior to the meeting to do it. I'm sure would welcome the other 3 township committee members to do the same. But thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. Just want to reiterate.
It was helpful, and the conversation was helpful.
I'm sure it was.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just want to reiterate with what Remo, Jim, and Heidi all said tonight, and I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have someone else?
Yeah, we have. Just there a second ago. Anna Kolchak.
Ann?
Yep, Ann Kostiak.
Yes, I can. Ann Kostiak. Hi, Ann. Could you please say your name and your address for the record?
It's Ann Kostiak, 6 Crescent Drive, Morris Township.
Yep. Thank you. Hi, Ann.
Hi. I, like everyone else, I appreciate the efforts. However, just hearing, I was on another meeting tonight, so I just actually tuned in, but I did catch Frank McKenna commenting that both you, Kathy, and Mark Jorfy had made a visit. That visit should have been made months ago, and that, I think, came from a discussion I had with Kathy a week ago that got quite heated last week, that I can't understand with such a major redevelopment plan coming up right to the fence on 3 properties that no one thought to do that before this. I think it's kind of sad because, as everyone has said, if this was your backyard, I think you would feel the same way. I don't think you want a 30-foot retaining wall, even if that's part of the discussion. And everyone wants to see the Abbey stay, and they'd like things to happen. But that should have been the first thing that this committee should have done. I would love to know how many of the committee members have actually read the redevelopment plan from front to back and know the dimensions, the true dimensions. You know, where the driveways will be and where, you know, the setback is. So I with Frank McKenna, I know it's COVID. Kathy said originally that was the reason that you just couldn't do that. And Mark was nice enough to respond to an email. And that's when I mentioned, well, maybe go out and visit. So COVID or no COVID, you can email the homeowner. I'm sure they'd be happy to step away from you. They don't have to be with you. If you even go up to the Abbey side, and you'll see how close everything would be. But I thank you very much for your time. I do think an open meeting is super important. Kathy had mentioned that we'd be able to see all the paperwork and better on a Zoom. Well, I can't quite see. I can see the people on the screen to the left, but they're the size of a pea. So if that's where the details are going to be for all the site plans and everything for everyone to view, they're not going to be able to see them. You know,
there is a way when someone shares the screen and shows documents to make it like your full screen. And in that case, that is, to me, if you can get that feature to work, that is one of the advantages of Zoom. Because I've been to many planning board meetings and sat in the audience, and as I've participated by Zoom, my experience at least has been that I am able to see the presentation documents better on the computer than I am, you know, depending where you're sitting in the meeting room.
But the camera would be zoomed in, not on any of the bodies in here. They would be zoomed in on that side. Completely.
No, when a presenter, like at a Zoom meeting, when one of the presenters is sharing information or sharing documents, they share their screen, and then on the video of the meeting, a close-up of the document they're talking about shows up on the screen.
Okay, well,
That may be one of those little tech things. Perhaps that will be covered in the training. I'm not 100% positive, but I think that might be a good thing, because when the documents are shown and you can see them fully on the screen, that does help, in my opinion.
so then the site plan itself will have all the wording of what building is, what each building is, and what each square footage is, and according, so it will be completely detailed, the actual site picture, the aerial view of the site. Because it's not in the redevelopment plan.
That's in the, yes. I have read the redevelopment plan, not in the last few days, but I believe there are diagrams for sure in the plan.
But they are not labeled, is what I'm saying. There's no footage labeled, square footage.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm sure, Mayor, that I'm sure, if I may, that the plan will be presented in great detail.
It will be presented in detail, yes.
Okay. Because currently the plan, the actual written plan, does not have any detail except what the architect's drawing is. There's nothing labeled on it. There's nothing. So you have to go back and forth to look at square footage and then match it up to what the actual building is. The buildings are not labeled. Matter of fact, we didn't know that until we met with the people.
Ms. Kostiak, if I may, I have no doubt that the planner for the township will present in great detail what the plan is, and if there are any questions that you have or anything left unanswered by his presentation, I'm certain that you will have the opportunity to ask those questions and get those answers.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
That's part of the public hearing is understanding the details of the plan and asking questions so that your questions are answered and you fully understand what the plan is.
I understand that, but this is a different mode of doing it. So we're not there to physically see them. So that's why I was asking, because when we met with the restoration hardware planner and the attorney, which most people for whatever reason didn't realize we were willing to work with, it was not labeled. Someone else that I know labeled them, so we were able to understand it.
Ms. Kostiak, I don't know if you're looking at the same screen I'm looking at, but on the left half of my screen, I see the council chambers. On the right hand side of my screen, I see a gallery of the people present. And understand that the left-hand side view, which I'm now looking at the council chambers, can be changed. And that is where documents will be posted and shown. And you're even able to click on them and make them full screen if you want. But yes, documents will be fully shared on screen. So you will not be looking at a picture of a picture.
Okay. Right. Well, right now, what I see is the board seating with Kathy in the center, Jeff Grazel to the right, and just a pull-down screen and a gentleman who has his back to us. I guess he's the technology person. But that's how I see it. Even if I come to the split, it's not.
As much as I like to give him credit, that's not Jeff Grazel to the right. That is BA Tim Quinn. But you will not be.
No.
Am I wrong?
Jeff. Excuse me, it's Jeff.
That is Jeff. Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I've been wrong all along. So,
contacts in, Scott.
Okay. All right.
I do want to make it clear that you're not going to be looking at documents as though they are on that screen that is to the left.
Okay.
That's not, you will see it in full view. It'll be put, instead of this broadcast of the council chambers or committee chambers, you will see the document.
Okay.
Because plainly, none of us can look at documents on that television to the left.
Well, and actually, okay. Thank you.
Mayor John Arvanites, the documents, if someone's looking at these documents on their phone, there's no way they're going to be able to fully see the same thing as if you're in person.
Yeah, I personally have not been using the phone. On my computer, it shows up very clearly.
Some people do.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Is there anyone else from the public?
GOK Long?
Would that be Gloria Long, maybe?
I've unmuted it several times. I'm not getting a response.
Okay, we have GL Long, and at our end, you're unmuted. Can you hear us? Okay, we have no response. I'm not sure what's going on here. If that's you, please try to figure out what's going on at your end. It looks like you're unmuted at our end. And is there anyone else?
We have 3 people that are raising their, 2 more people who have already spoken.
Okay. We are.
We have a second here.
Yeah, we do. I do want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to say their piece, but 5 minutes, no more. Okay, so we've always done that in the past, and I want to continue that tonight. So I believe Remo Caputo, did you want a second round? Remo?
Yes, I do. I won't take.
Could you please keep it to 5 minutes?
I don't need 5 more minutes, just one comment and one question. The comment that I'd make is that it's not appropriate to start talking to people and saying to them, if we don't approve this, there's going to be condos there. That is, you fight one battle at a time, and the property is not zoned for condos. The town has already done their low and moderate income plan, so that's not going to happen for a while. But it's also, it is not appropriate for a developer, and the developer is not doing it, you guys are, to say, if you don't approve this commercial, there's going to be condos there. That's not an appropriate thing to do. So I don't think that should be happening. But the more important thing that I have right now is this question. With all that's been said, is the council, is the committee going to reconsider its decision?
You mean as far as the way we're conducting the meeting?
That is correct.
We may make a few little tweaks to it, but we are going to proceed on next Wednesday.
Is there any chance you'll do it entirely outdoor at the gazebo as we suggested earlier?
There's something already going on at the gazebo.
There's something already going on at the gazebo that night, so it would not be. What does occur to me for further conversation at our end, and I don't know the answer to this, but I am willing to ask the question, which is there any way that we, from the Township Committee and the professionals who are comfortable attending in person, if we can be outside as well? I don't know the answer, but to me that would address a lot of the objections or questions, concerns that have been brought up this evening. And I see what you're saying. If you're sitting on the board and you're looking directly at a large number of people, there is value in that. I agree.
Mayor, and again, please don't take this. But I don't know any other way to say it. If this is not done properly, it opens up the prospect of an ordinance that was passed improperly, and if that's challenged, the delay would be 9, 10, 11, 12 months, not 1 or 2 months. I don't think that's in our interest. It's not in your interest. It's not in the developer's interest. It is in the interest to get it right the first time.
Yes.
That is
Can you just repeat what you just said would be the basis of a challenge?
The right to be heard, due process right to be heard as set forth in the ordinance. I don't believe, look, the DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, came out with guidelines, and they said, this is how we think you should do this, okay? It is not law, it is recommendations, okay? I'm a member of the Land Use Committee, Morris County. I was chairman for 25 years. We had a Zoom meeting about three months ago. We had 15 attorneys on it, and we discussed the Zoom meeting, and even the judge was on it. We had one of the attorneys, who's probably one of the most experienced land use attorneys in Morris County, said that he had a situation or he was getting involved in a situation where he might have to sign off on a lender's certification that the site plan had been done in accordance with the statute, and he would be unwilling to do that because he couldn't certify that the site plan that was done on Zoom was consistent with the land use law. And there wasn't anybody on that Zoom meeting, there was like 13, 14 of us, who disagreed with him. No one at this point is willing to say that what we're doing is works. The only time we're going to find that out is if there was legislation or some judge decides it. Up to them, we're all guessing. And I don't, like I said, I don't.
So Mr. Caputo, the missing piece, as I'm understanding it, in the right to be heard, if we conduct it outdoors, is that the members of the Township Committee and the professionals are not outdoors with the audience, correct?
I think I believe that if they were outside and we were all able to do just an indoor meeting outside, I think we're good.
Okay. I'm looking into that possibility. I do not have the answer as we speak, but I can see that being something that's possible. It would still be at this location, and it would still be at that time and date. And I don't know the answer right now, but it's something we will look into.
I am not looking to be an obstructionist. I'm not looking to delay it. I want it to be done, but I want it to be done right. And if it's the interest of delaying it as opposed to doing it wrong, I'd rather see it delayed. But if it can be done right, then fine.
Okay, so understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there someone else?
Heidi?
Heidi, are you coming back? Heidi?
She's been unmuted.
Heidi is unmuted, but we're not hearing you.
I just didn't know Remo was going to jump back on.
Heidi, you gotta keep it to 5 minutes.
Right. I said I wasn't aware that Remo was going to jump back on, but I think that, in an effort to, make sure that any future legislative action that may need to happen because of this project, that, if that includes, something about whether or not the people are heard, that could be a problem in the future. So like he said, initially, I don't think the committee or the developer or the citizenship wants to be a test case on this front, So I just asked you to consider that when
you're reiterating what Mr. Caputo said.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you again for taking my call.
Thank you. Is there someone else?
So we had 2 more people just popped in.
Okay.
Amy Miller.
Amy Miller? Is Amy Miller, are you there?
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Justin and Amy Miller. We are at 50 Crescent Drive.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is this is the first time you're hearing from us since we purchased our house and moved here almost 2 years ago. So it's good to speak to you. I just wanted to reiterate a few of the other points that were already said, and I'll keep it brief, but it's our feeling, and I know it's a lot of others' feelings, especially within the neighborhood, that an in-person meeting is necessary. We do appreciate the planning that has gone into the possible outdoor Zoom broadcast with people being brought in. But what does concern me is, God forbid there's inclement weather, it goes straight back to a full Zoom meeting. And that would be just incredibly disappointing. And I really don't think it would be right for this meeting. Just in my normal course of day, I probably spend about 6 hours on Zoom calls. Another Zoom call of this importance would be just adding that on top of it. I know how easy it is for people to sort of check out, not pay attention to speaking, and we all do it. Everyone does it. It would just be a very, very disappointing situation for something that's affecting our neighborhood in this manner. And just in closing, I really would like to echo what Ann said. I would try and compel the committee members that haven't actually visited the site to do so. I think until you're standing on that property and looking at the homes around it and the possible effect of the development, it really puts it into a little bit clearer of a lens. So that's all I have. Thank you for listening.
It does. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your views. Do we have someone else?
Terry?
Terry? Terry, is that Terry Medina? I can't, yes, okay, go ahead. I believe you're unmuted. Are you there, Terry?
She's unmuted.
Okay, Terry, at our end, you're unmuted. Is there anyone else while we give Terry a chance to?
No.
No one else. Okay, Terry, I'm not sure what's going on, but you are unmuted at our end, and we're not hearing you at all. So if we don't hear from you soon, I think we're going to move on. There is a second public commentary toward at the end of our meeting. So you could contribute then if you like. So with that, I believe I need a motion to close the public commentary.
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Next up, we have 3 ordinances for introduction tonight, and I'll ask Mr. Carlson.
Mrs. Mayor, this is Peter Mancuso. Could we take a 5-minute break now?
Would you like to take a 5-minute break?
If he needs one, we should allow it.
Sure. I'm okay with it. If everybody on the committee's okay, I'm okay with it. What do you think? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, take a 5-minute break. We will reconvene at 9:40.
But yeah, don't hang up.
Yeah, don't hang up. Anyone?
Yeah, stay on Zoom.
Anyway, okay, so next up, we're going to resume here, and next up we have ordinances. So I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Carlson for 1720.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The first ordinance we have up, and I'm going to close you out so I can look at the agenda. The first ordinance we have up is Ordinance 1720. This is an ordinance vacating the rights of the Township of Morris in and to a certain 20-foot wide pedestrian right-of-way existing between 26 and 28 Stonehenge Road, otherwise known as Block 2201, Lot 13 and Lot 14.
Okay, so this is for introduction. It's not for public commentary.
That's correct.
And
I will move 17-20 for introduction.
Is there a second? Roll call. Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call, please? Ms. Emilio, are you there?
Looks like she's muted.
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes, I'm on phone now.
Thank you. Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson? Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Next up, we have ordinance 18-20. This is an ordinance vacating the rights of the Township of Morris in and to a certain sewer easement existing on 12 Aspen Way, otherwise known as Block 6003, Lot 13.
I'll introduce.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Arvanites? Am I muted again?
No.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Arvanites is.
Yes.
Are you there?
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
here.
Arvanites. Mr. Jarfi?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Thank you. And our last ordinance is ordinance 19-20. This is an ordinance amending the redevelopment plan for block 10401, lot 3, located on East Hanover Avenue in the Township of Morris.
I will move 19-20. I do have some comments when we're all done.
Yes, and so do I. So we have a move to introduce. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Before we vote, a few comments. This is an ordinance that amends the existing redevelopment plan that is on the table for the old Colgate Men's site. This original plan was passed in April of 2017, and it included 3 different parts: a residential part, an affordable housing part, and a commercial/retail part. The residential component of this plan is in the process of being built. You've probably seen it. The affordable housing portion is also in the process of being built. But our amendment tonight centers on the retail portion of this property, which runs along West Hanover. It's known as the Marketplace, and it is not yet built. So getting to the point where we're at now has been a major project. Mr. Jarfi and Mr. Griselle in particular have really worked hard on this. I would like to turn it over to them, to Mr. Griselle. Mr. Jarfi, if you could explain some of the amendments that are going into this plan.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Just to give a little bit more background, when the original plan was adopted in 2017, only one of the 5 present township committee members was on the governing body at that time. So the current governing body had nothing to do with the original plan to turn Colgate into this townhouse development and strip mall. But we have been handed this development plan, a redevelopment plan to work with. As everybody knows, the townhouse development is being built, as was mentioned by one of the residents before, and many units have already been sold. The building company of Lennar is managing that portion of the project. And then late last year, the developer of the strip mall, of the already approved strip mall, came to the township committee asking for modifications to the prior approvals. And the original approvals had included an allowance for a drive-through lane to 1 restaurant, a drive-through lane to a pharmacy, and a drive-through lane to a bank. And the developer came back to us requesting that they convert all 3 of those drive-through facilities to restaurants. Given the current state of the economy and the way restaurants are working now with a lot of pickup food, they wanted the ability to have 3 restaurants serviced by drive-through lanes. And I've stated publicly several times, and I did earlier tonight, that I want all development in Morris Township to have a community benefit other than simply bringing in tax dollars and rateables. And frankly, the strip mall that had been previously proposed was simply that, a New Jersey strip mall, in my mind. So the Township Committee took this opportunity to engage the developer and seek improvements to the project. And thankfully, the developer was very willing to work with us. As everybody knows, in Morris Township, we don't have a downtown, and we use Morristown as our downtown. Several members of the Township Committee viewed this project as an opportunity to create a quote-unquote destination for our residents and a place for people to gather and hang out for a few hours. And we took the opportunity to work with the developer for some very nice improvements. And Councilman Giorgi and I took the lead on the negotiations, as the mayor said. And I'm going to hand it over to Mark to walk through the specific improvements.
Very good. Mr. Giorgi?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jeff. To provide some background, I think the members of the Township Committee wanted to make sure that with this opportunity, we were providing as much positive outcomes as possible to our residents. The last thing any of us want to see is for the Hanover Avenue corridor to become built up like Route 10. And we've seen a lot of stress on the other side of Hanover Avenue, on the Hanover side, where you have strip malls and more development going up. And what we wanted to do is try to alleviate some of that pressure and really provide something that was beneficial to the community in an area that wouldn't have had it anyway had the developer not come up approached us recently to revisit this plan. So some of the things that we're getting out of this plan that were not in the original plan, which is what we're introducing this ordinance for tonight, is having a pocket park, a place for residents to go if they pick up food or if they go shopping. They can enjoy the outside. They can have there'll be benches, a water feature, a community area, basically an open space for people to go. So you're not just driving into the strip mall and leaving. You're actually encouraged to stay. Another thing which I really appreciate Jeff's work and Mayor Wilson's work on is finding areas of this development and brainstorming of how we make it better. And one of those ways we did it was creating a plaza where a parking lot was going to be. Having an area in between already planned buildings to have an open area for people to sit and eat at or to just relax on a lunch break. Again, encourages people to stay and spend money at the development rather than just coming in, passing through, grabbing something to eat and going. Being able to encourage them to stay and enjoy the area. Another thing I'll also mention is we put an emphasis on walkability. We want to make sure people who are walking in this development can do so safely and they're not constantly fighting against traffic and traffic flow, that if they are going to be staying in this area to shop or to eat, that they're able to do so safely. And we worked with the developer and we appreciate all their work that they've done to enhance pedestrian safety and walkability. Lastly, and I think it's a big step forward for Morris Township. I don't think we've done it before for developments such as these, but we've asked the developer to put in electric vehicle charging stations for our customers. The developer has been very generous in working with us to have this. This is the new future. We need to provide an infrastructure for residents and for customers to have, since electric vehicles are becoming the norm. So, Ms. Amelia, you may want to mute your phone, mute your line while you laugh.
No, I was laughing at my dog.
Thank you. So, excuse me. So when I think it's a great step forward for Morris Township to provide for the future and for our residents and to provide an infrastructure for our own residents who may have electric vehicles. They'll be able to shop and charge their vehicles when they go shopping here. So those are the main takeaways. We're increasing outdoor space, we're increasing walkability, and we're increasing our green infrastructure here to encourage those with electric vehicles or hybrids to come shop here in Morris Township. So I think it's a win-win. I think we're doing a great service to the community to make it not look like an eyesore, to make it not look like Route 10 where it's just concrete and asphalt. We're encouraging green space, we're encouraging trees to be planted. So I appreciate all the works and efforts that have been going into this project.
I could tag on to that just a little bit. In the pocket park that's going to be in the back of the mall, we also envision having some kind of performance stage there, a gazebo, so that there could not a major stage, but a small one where you could have some kind of outdoor music or performance of some kind of comedian or magician for kids, but some kind of performance space where people can gather. And Mark mentioned taking out parking spaces. So there was it was like a typical strip mall where it's just a sea of parking spaces. And what we did is we broke up the mall into sort of little sections and have these outdoor plazas in 2 different spaces. And each of those outdoor plazas is going to have a water feature, and we're hoping the tenants will come in that will actually face inward. So instead of fronting the mall, they'll face inward onto the plaza where there could be some outdoor dining, restaurants, and the pedestrian plaza. So really create a community where the objective is to create a community feel, have a place where people can hang out and enjoy themselves. And like Mark said, stay for a few hours, not just go there, shop, and leave.
I really want to give Mr. Grizel and Mr. Jorfi a lot of credit. You guys worked hard on this. You spent a lot of time. There was a lot of communication. There was a lot of good ideas you brought to the table, kind of a vision of what you wanted, and you stayed with it. And I think the result is really good. So thank you for that.
Mayor, one last thing I forgot to mention. In your outreach to residents, you did host a Zoom call with residents from the area with
Yes, I was going to mention that. I thought that was very productive. Mr. Grizel and I did a Zoom call with the residents who live on the, it's not called Marketplace. What's it called? A collection. Collection at Morristown. And we had quite a number of residents who live on the site. They were very happy with the meeting that we had. It was very informative. We had a number of residents from the Collinsville neighborhood as well. And it was an informal meeting. It was outside the formal legal public hearing process. It was a more time for sort of dialogue back and forth, Q&A, suggestions. We had a number of suggestions came up that the developer was willing to meet with the residents on. And to me, this is the kind of communication before you get into the official legal process that I think is very productive for everybody. So thanks to you guys especially for what you did. It was good work.
Yeah, just so the public is clear, this is an introduction. So at our September 16th meeting, we will actually have the full public hearing. We'll lay out the plans. I am hopeful that some kind of plans will be posted to the website this week now that we've introduced the plan. Mr. Quinn, if you're out there, could you comment on that?
Yes, sir. Now that I have the plan, once it is introduced, then the plan gets posted up on the website. It also gets advertised in the papers with that, and I will be just distributing to all of you if the vote is in favor of introducing.
Thank you.
Very good. So there will be information for the public to review on our website very shortly.
Are there any other comments from anyone else on the Township Committee?
Yes, Mayor, John Arvanites. I appreciate all the work that was put in. There was extra work between Mark and Jeff, but just for the record too, and I think Peter was part of it, Peter and I and the 3 of you did participate in meetings with the developer. So it wasn't just the 3 of you getting this done as far as input with walking, making it walkable between the townhouses and the parking, the gazebo idea, as far as having concerts there and things like that, so that it can be a community focal point. So I just want to state for the record that the 5 of us worked on this. I know that Jeff and Mark worked on it more, but all of us did have some input.
You're right, everyone worked on it, but the amount of time toward the end, that was led by Mr. Grizel and Mr. Jorfi.
Yes, I know. And thank you for that too, by the way.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Okay, so with that, the ordinance has been introduced, it's been seconded, and I believe we're ready for a roll call vote, unless you have a comment. Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Did you want to say anything, or are you ready to vote?
I'm sorry, Mayor, could you repeat what you just said?
I was asking if anyone on the Township Committee had anything else to comment, and if you would like to, if you have any comments, it doesn't sound like you do, so we'll be ready for the roll call.
I appreciate the work that was done. And I'm glad that Mr. Arvini, a certain extent, and I just think that I'm very, very proud of that piece of property and area.
Gosh. Okay. You're kind of going in and out, Peter. I'm having trouble hearing your sentences. Madam Clerk, can we do a roll call?
Certainly. Mr. Arvanites.
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi.
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso. Oh, he's offline. Mr. Grizel.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes. Did you get Mr. Mancuso's vote?
No, I did not. No, I did not. Oh, that Mr. Mancuso.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we're set, it's introduced, and the public hearing on this will be at our September meeting, which is the third Wednesday, and I don't have the date in front of me. But I do encourage everyone who's interested to come and share your views.
September 16th, Mayor.
September 16th.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, next up, we have resolutions. Mr. Carlson?
Sure, and Madam Mayor, if I may, I'll just state for the record that all of the ordinances introduced tonight will be heard on November 16th, that being 17-20 through 19-20. On the resolutions, we've already adopted resolution 172-20, so we're looking for a motion to approve resolutions 155-20 through 171-20 and 173-20 through 174-20.
So moved.
Mayor,
Thank you.
169-20 be voted separately so I can abstain.
We'll take that off the list.
Okay, anything else to be said?
I'll second the motion with the removal of 169 and 172 since we already voted on that.
Second?
That's my second.
Oh, that is the second. Okay. So then we need a roll call. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Arvanites.
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi.
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso. Mr. Mancuso.
He's muted again.
He is muted.
Mr. Mancuso.
Don't go away. I abstain on this because I have not had, it wasn't anybody's fault, but I haven't had time to see the resolution. So I'll just abstain.
Thank you. Mr. Grizel.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
And I'll now move resolution 169-20.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, Madam Clerk?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Arvanites.
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi.
Abstain.
Mr. Mancuso.
Mr. Mancuso abstained on the other resolutions. I assume he'll abstain from this.
Thank you, Mr. Grizel. Mr. Grizel.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
That concludes my portion. I will mute.
Okay, thank you. General business, correspondence, and consent calendar.
So moved. As circulated.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Standing committee reports and commentary by Township Committee. I think we'll combine them. So, Mr. Arvanites, could you begin, please?
Sure. Just want to thank our whole staff, Public Works and Police and Fire, and for all their efforts that they put in during the tropical storm and helping with the cleanup. Tim Quinn organizing and staying on top of it with JCP&L. Want to thank him and his staff as well for all of their efforts to make this as smooth as possible. It's just good to see that the pools are back up and running, and it seems like our residents are enjoying the use of them. And I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you. Mr. Dorothy?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with my standing committee reports and move into general commentary. I wanted to give a report for the Legislation Standing Committee to highlight a few environmental initiatives that I hope that the Township Committee will bring up during this second half of the year. As we approach the plastic bag ordinance taking effect later in October, I'd ask of the committee that we redouble our efforts to further protect our environment here in Morris Township, to bolster our ability to provide smart decisions in modernizing our infrastructure and in protecting our environment, whether it be our parks, trails, or other areas of the township. First, a big initiative of mine in the next few months will be to pass an ordinance requiring the inclusion of electric vehicle charging stations for future developments. We discussed this earlier at the marketplace, and I think it should be a building block for future development here in Morris Township when it does come up to require for commercial and residential. I think moving forward with electric vehicle charging in our municipal lots that we're doing on our own is a great step forward, but requiring it for future development or redevelopment, wherever it take place, should it be suitable, I think this should be part of that that plan, because it is a future utility. Secondly, I'd like to, and I'd appreciate the work from the Environmental Commission on this, would be to introduce an ordinance to prevent the further spread of bamboo from private properties onto neighboring properties, municipal properties, or other neighboring lands. I'd like to highlight this issue through our town and try to better educate our residents on this, because unfortunately down the road, as this continues to spread, it will be an expensive remediation project that will burden the taxpayers. I know if you drive through town, you may notice bamboo is coming up in Washington Valley and Jones Woods, and I would just ask this committee's support down the road to support a bamboo ordinance to try to contain that issue. Secondly, I wanted to thank the committee for their input on sending a letter to the Board of Public Utilities last week. I echo John's comments to thank Tim Quinn, our DPW, our first responders, and all the frontline workers from our utility companies. I myself was out on the engine during the storm and after the storm with the fire department, and the call volume was very high, and I think our town did a tremendous job responding to calls. Clearly, there's more that JCP&L can do to be prepared in the future. I think the BPU needs to be more stringent in the future too, to holding them to higher standards in terms of preparedness and response, which is why I'm so happy that we sent this letter to the BPU asking for better storm preparedness, better storm response, better communications to municipalities and customers, because that was a major issue during the storm. Providing some more customer fairness, especially for seniors and for low-income folks who have to bear the financial burden of replacing food or medicine that went bad because of the lack of refrigeration. And I think we need to do more for investing in our critical infrastructure when it comes to the power grid. So for residents who haven't seen the letter, you can visit our website and find that. It's also on our Facebook page. And lastly, obviously we've had a tremendous amount of discussion on the Abbey. First, I want to thank the residents who have been on this call for a long time to talk about their feedback. I empathize with your concerns. I've grown up in Morris Township. My parents' house had a major development behind their house near Fosterfields off of Cadena Road. I know what it looks like to be abutted against a lot that could be totally changed. And that's the perspective I have when going into this. And I think a number of committee members, while they may not have personally visited private residences, I know several have visited the property when this first came up and walked the property. And I appreciate all of the hard work that they're going to be putting into listen to our neighbors' concerns. And obviously in a perfect world, we'd be able to have a meeting where the sound system's perfect, the video quality is perfect, and everyone's voice is heard, as if it wasn't COVID. But I applaud Mayor Wilson's work to try to bring some sort of normalcy in allowing people to actually be up in front and talk to us. I would love for us to be outdoors next week, and I hope we can come to a resolution to have a little bit more of an open concept type of meeting run next week for the Abbey. So those are my committee reports and comments. I appreciate the time, and thank you for everyone for staying on so late.
Thank you, Mr. Jolfi. Mr. Grisel? Oh, Mr. Mancuso, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm using the phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, just a couple of small items. I'm so glad we got to the point of getting ready to demolish the old post office at Convene Station. It was filled with mold, asbestos.
It's not connected on his phone.
And decided that it was some time for that done.
That's
and as secondarily, congratulations to our newly promoted Lieutenant Kyle Lowy. And being on his phone for the last 3 hours and 10 minutes, I just want to commend that this is government that. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Just say government at its finest. It was wonderful having the input of all of you and all of the people in Township. And I hope we can get this thing resolved as best we can on the 25th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grayson?
Thank you. So as Mr. Mancuso just mentioned, I also want to acknowledge the resolution on the agenda tonight promoting Sergeant Kyle Lowy to the position of lieutenant in the Morris Township Police Department. This opening was created by the recent retirement at the PD, and an outdoor promotion ceremony is being scheduled. We don't have a date yet, but I want to congratulate Lieutenant Lowy and extend my best wishes to him for him in his new role. This past week also relates to the police department. This past week, Police Chief Mark DiCarlo recognized 2 officers with letters of recognition that I want to let the community know about. Patrolman Muhammad Nasser was recognized for his outstanding service during a residential burglary investigation. He made a motor vehicle stop of a vehicle that had been near the scene and arrested the occupant. The arrest resulted in the seizure and forfeiture of the motor vehicle and some U.S. currency. And patrolwoman Natisha McIver was recognized for her outstanding service in 2019. She was nominated for the 2019 Officer of the Year Award based on her high level of performance as the school resource officer within the Morris School District, the Leeds program director, and her after-school program called Ladies in Training. Both officers are great examples of the dedication to service of our officers here in Morris Township and their commitment to keep our community safe. With regard to the joint court, we had an announcement from Judge Traxel that he wants to retire at the end of the year. That is out there. Given that this is a joint court and not a simple municipal court, the appointment of the judge is handled by the governor of the state of New Jersey. But the court is hopeful that they can at least make some recommendations to the governor. So there have been some preliminary discussions about what we could do, and we're trying to learn the rules so that we can make a possible recommendation to Governor Murphy. But at the end of the day, it's his decision. We just need a new judge in there by the end of the year so we can handle the court for next year. As for my general commentary, we've talked about the power outage tonight, and residents are very understandably frustrated by those lengthy outages that many of us experienced, myself included. I urge everybody to go to the website and read the letter that we wrote to BPU. We specifically wrote it to BPU as opposed to JCP&L because BPU is the one who has the authority over the utility. The municipality itself has no control over the utility. We have a contact person, and the mayor mentioned Rob Flynn, who is our contact at JCP&L, and he helped us out a lot, but we really have no power. We don't have any power over the utility, and it all comes from BPU. So while other people have been addressing JCP&L, we chose to address our letter to BPU and ask them to really put their foot down and take action and take immediate action. Mr. Jorfi mentioned some of the suggestions that we had made, but we did close out the letter. Just want to make sure everybody knows that the Morris Township Committee stands ready to engage in the forthcoming discussions and be part of it. We believe that Morris Township residents deserve better and look forward to participating in the debriefs of the tropical storm and the response that is going to be coming in the coming weeks. So again, read the letter. It was very good, and I'm looking forward to a response from BPU. If we don't get one, we are going to send another letter. I also want to thank again the OEM, the DPW, everybody else who helped with storm response. I also want to give a special thank you to our Township Administrator, Tim Quinn, for working double time. He often works overtime. I think for those few days, he worked double time throughout the outage to keep on top of things and coordinate the response. So again, Mr. Quinn works very hard on behalf of the township. In the background, a lot of people don't see it, but thank you, Tim, for all your hard work. I also want to thank the Parks and Rec Department who put on the big screen movies this season and the concert. I think we had our final one last night, with the Ann Arbor Wind Symphony. So thanks for all the good work that Bill Fulch and his team did on that. And I want to close again by reminding the public to remain vigilant with their health protections against COVID-19. New Jersey's in a really good place right now, and I'd like to keep it that way ahead of the kids going back to school. So I remind all residents that for maximum safety and protection for both you and those around you, you should please wear a mask at all times when you are in proximity to another person, even if they are 6 feet away, and even if you are outside your home. Mask wearing is what's going to keep this under control.
Thank you. I would like to report on the Energy, Environment, and Sustainability Standing Committee. We work quite a bit with the Environmental Commission. I am really proud of the work that the Environmental Commission is doing. They're working on many different projects. They have recommended to us, and we have sort of sitting ready to act on when there is time, the initiation of a municipal energy audit, which is through the New Jersey Clean Energy Program. We also passed tonight an environmental justice resolution, which came to us on recommendation of the Environmental Commission. The EC is planning a training session on New Jersey stormwater rules that is going to be shared with all the Environmental Commission members as well as the Planning Board and Board of Adjustment members. I think that's will be a very helpful training for the board members. They have on the EC, they have a number of subcommittees up and running. They have a new format for reporting their work, which I think is really interesting and informative and motivating for people. Each subcommittee reports on their ongoing initiatives, their actions since the last meeting, and their actions for next month. And it gives kind of a common framework for all these different subcommittees that are working actively to share what they're doing with others. They do have an outreach subcommittee that's working on the plastic bag ordinance outreach for that and recycling. They have a community solar and energy aggregation. They have a tree invasive species subcommittee. That is the subcommittee that's going to work on the bamboo ordinance that Mr. Jorfi was talking about. They're very interested in that. And this subcommittee is also gathering info to do a possible review of our tree ordinance. There's another subcommittee. This is a long-term project looking into adding an environmental sustainability element to our master plan. I like that they're meeting once a month. They're getting that gives the EC more opportunity to give their feedback on their site plan reviews from the ground up. And I just want to say kudos to Mr. Kenny, who's chairing the EC, and to everyone who's serving on it. They're really, they're doing terrific work, great progress. So congratulations. Also on our Transportation Advisory Committee, TAC. TAC met for the first time on August 12th. It's the first time they've met and it was by Zoom since March when COVID shut everything down. TAC is also organized in 2 subgroups: walking, biking, driving, parking. And they've also established another subgroup on WOODLAND. There are continuing questions and concerns, ideas being sort of shared back and forth, and the WOODLAND subgroup is looking to explore options a bit further. So we'll be interested to see what they come up with. On the biking subgroup, there was a presentation by Trans Options, which is it's one of the, I looked this up, we were talking about this, Mr. Quinn. It's called the Transportation Management Association. It's one of 8 in New Jersey. Trans Options covers northern Jersey. And the significance of that is that they're funded through other transportation agencies. They're a great resource for us, and we're able to access their assistance at no cost. So they came to the TAC meeting on the 12th of August, and they gave a presentation about the bike share program that they've been working on for quite a while. What they're looking to do is establish a bike share program that would connect Morris Township, and Madison. They've already got commitments from Morristown and Madison, and we're looking to get a commitment from us. So the bike subgroup was enthusiastic, but they realistically had a lot of questions, and we're looking into it, and I'm expecting they'll come back at the September meeting and will give us a report then, perhaps a recommendation. As far as general comments, I want to echo what has been said so far. Thank you so much to all of our staff who went above and beyond in helping on the outage situation. Mr. Quinn was really working overtime on that. Much appreciated. Thank you. And a couple other things I did want to highlight on going back to the celebration of the 19th Amendment. I'm working with a bunch of my women friends who are elected officials we are doing an event on August 30th. It will be on the steps of the Madison Municipal Building. It'll be from 4 to 5:30 on Sunday, August 30th. And we are inviting all women who are elected officials in Morris County, local, county, state, and federal, and everyone else who's interested. We're getting quite a bit of interest on this. We've had several groups contact us and want to attend. It is COVID, so it is going to be socially distanced and wearing masks and everything. But there's quite a bit of interest, I think, in celebrating this the milestone event. Our focus is then, now, and future, and we are still putting the finishing touches on who our speakers will be. So we have a flyer, and that will be posted shortly, perhaps tomorrow. And I encourage everyone to check it out and show up. We'll look forward to seeing you then. So that is all I have. And at this point, I believe our next item is our second public comment and inquiry.
Okay.
Do we have
George Quinlan?
George Quinlan? Are you there, George?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please say your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is George Quillen and my address is 7 Bishop Court. I wanted to thank the committee for the good work that's being done on a number of fronts. I was particularly impressed by the changes to the redevelopment plan for the strip mall along Hanover Avenue. I think that will be a big improvement, and also the work that's being done by the Environmental Commission. Mr. Jorfe's idea, or the one that he expressed, for requiring charging stations, electric vehicle charging stations in any future developments. I think that's a great idea. And I also strongly feel that that a bamboo ordinance would be a great idea as well, because I do see some stands of bamboo in various places around the township that I think are a real problem. And people need to be better educated about bamboo. I think that there's a lot of really good work being done by the Environmental Commission, by the Transportation Advisory Commission, and by the Historic Preservation Commission. And I would urge any members of the public who are still on this call to try to dial into or zoom into the meetings of those committees, because I think that they're doing excellent work. I do want to mention my pet concern about Zoom meetings and the way in which they're being conducted. All of us are learning more, I think, every week about Zoom. And sometimes things don't go as expected. Like, for example, tonight my camera's not working for some reason, but I'm glad you can hear me. It would be great for members of the public to know who the other members of the public are who are on a call. So I wanted to ask a few questions. Are the people whose pictures I can see, Mr. Quinn and the members of the committee, are you able to see who the members of the public are that are on the Zoom meeting right now?
I'm able to see names. I can see your picture. But when a member of the public speaks, I can hear them, but I cannot see their face. Right?
This is a webinar.
Yes.
A webinar only allows for speaking and raising of hands.
Right.
The video is not attached to a webinar.
Correct. I know.
Okay.
Mr. Quillen likes the meeting format.
If we promoted them into panelists.
So I don't feel that strongly about whether people can see my face. You know, the fact that my camera's not working, if that's a feature of the webcam, to me, that's one of the lesser concerns. The bigger concern is simply not knowing who's attending the meeting. Who are the other members of the public that are part of this meeting? Am I the only member of the public who's still here? It's very, very frustrating.
There is a place, George, I believe, on if you look, there should be an icon, participants. And if you click on that.
There's not for me. Down at the bottom, I only have Q&A and lower hand. I did enter something into the Q&A about 2 hours ago, but there's been no response. So I don't know if any of you are looking at that.
We're not looking at Q&A.
We're not looking at Q&A.
I strongly recommend that the committee consider reformatting these meetings. I'm not fully in sympathy with the neighbors of the Abbey with all their complaints about Zoom and requirements for in-person meetings. But I do feel that an online meeting like this needs to be structured differently so that people can at least know who else is on the call and have some opportunity to interact with those other people. So
that would be a question that I would have for the training session, and I don't know if it's answerable, but it may be that, I don't know, depending on your computer. Like on my computer, I look and I have a tab that says participants. I can click on that and see who the panelists are and who the attendees are.
Right. Well, I don't want to prolong this segment too much.
Yeah.
I just urge you to find another way so that people can really feel that they're meeting with one another and not just interacting one-on-one with you guys. And if you're not looking at Q&A, then find a way to get rid of it from people's screens so that they don't pointlessly type in questions.
Okay, Q&A, that's another question. Okay, we got it.
That was it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Hold on. I'll just.
I do see something in the Q&A from a Kay Johnson who wanted to speak but couldn't be unmuted. I don't see a Kay Johnson in the queue though.
You have to raise your hand. And
Oh, I didn't see this.
I'm on the phone now. I don't know if you can hear me.
Heidi, you're back.
Yeah. So in terms
Say your name and
yes. Heidi Ross, 60 Egan Lane. In regard to technical issues, I too have typed into Q&A and haven't been responded to, and I've been on several meetings now. So if you're not going to use it, probably, you know, at least for the next few meetings, if you would announce that the Q&A is not being utilized, I think that would be helpful. I want to point out that if people's battery power gets low, that can be a problem with connectivity on Zoom. So once battery power on phones or computers gets below, like, I don't know, it might depend on the device, but gets lowish, that can affect connectivity. And I also wanted to point out that the code, the password code that is listed on the municipal website, if I go to agenda and meetings section under government, go to the agenda where the Zoom information is provided, the code that I would need to key in to get into the meeting is lacking a digit. So when you publish for the next meeting, the August 26th meeting, I would ask you to extremely carefully edit the content and make sure that the connectivity information that's being provided is the connectivity information that the public will need to use. Because if I were to call in now and go from that link, the code that's provided doesn't function. Because I went out of this meeting and came back and tested it, and I was short a digit. So I'm just pointing that out. Again,
it's a good point. Thank you.
I think I have to say that the connectivity issue that, let's say, Council Member Mancuso experienced tonight is certainly demonstrative of probably what we're all going to be experiencing next week. And again, I'm going to speak to that on the point of the fairness issue. And lastly, I'd like to say, if you're interested right now, I would be willing for you to do a screen share so that I don't know who else is on the call either, but George Quinlan, if you're out there, hello. And to anybody else who happens to still be on. But if you would test a screen share option now, I'd be more than happy to stay on the call and see how it looks so that we can see how this screen might look when we're looking at documents next week.
Yeah, that's going to be that will be covered in the training tomorrow. Greg is telling me here, and on Monday, if you can't do tomorrow, we're not equipped to do it right this minute.
I see.
And I have to say, I was not aware of the Q&A portion and the comments that were being shared. So I learned that this evening. And I did. Can I ask you, Heidi, one thing? Is my mic better? We did a little adjustment on my computer on the mic. I'm just curious if my audio sounds any better.
Well, you're sitting in the Township Committee meeting hall, right?
Right.
So I find, which I've written into the Q&A in the past, because typically in the past it was Mr. Quinn, and when he was using the mics at the dais, right, that those persons particularly come over distorted. And I think that's because, I don't know for certain, but I think as you're coming over distorted now, I think it's because maybe you tend to lean into the microphone on the dais, and that, because of that being perhaps necessary when a regular meeting is going on, and I think that makes the audio from the receiver's end sound distorted. The people on the phone calls or computers that are working from home, let's say Mr. Jorfi always seems clear, Jeff Grazel often seems clear, but whoever's sitting at the podium or the dais, I'm not sure I know that word well enough, excuse my ignorance on that, but comes across distorted somewhat to me as a listener.
Good feedback, thank you.
Mayor, if I may, I think this problem is easily resolved. I think that's what, as someone's played in a band for 30 years, I think what's going on is you're broadcasting through the chambers, and that's the sound that's being picked up. If you were to simply turn off, instead of speaking into the microphones, speak into your computer, I think that would resolve it. That said, I think you can be heard perfectly.
Okay. I did turn the audio off on my computer. So anyway, I'm going to be joining the training tomorrow, and well, some of these questions that are coming up tonight will be covered tomorrow. And I appreciate the feedback.
All righty.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
That's it.
That's it. Okay, seeing no one else, can I have a motion to close the public commentary?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Consideration of monthly reports.
I'll move those as circulated, Mayor.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we will pay our bills, $14,229,954.33.
So moved.
Madam Clerk, we need someone move it.
I'll second it. John moved it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, we need a roll call, please.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Arvanites,
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
He's muted. Mr. Mancuso, are you there?
I think
He's on mute.
Mr. Mancuso.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Grizel,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we will conclude. We are adjourning, and we will reconvene next Wednesday, August 26th at 6 p.m. I appreciate everyone's comments, and we hear you, and we will look forward to seeing you at that time.
I move that we adjourn.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.